Bianca ran her thin fingers through Amber Dean's golden locks while she scrolled through the script on her phone. She prepared it while waiting for her guest to arrive. Errand Hartwell. Twin, you know what? It's pretty dark. Zachary, switch on the lights. The TV in the dark hurts my eyes. Shall I also turn the TV off as well? Yes. The news no longer interests me. When the lights came on, Bianca saw the terrible state of Errand. She was covered in dirt, her clothes horribly torn as if she crawled out of the earth, which she most likely did if Bianca's guess as to her identity was correct. There were splotches of dried blood on Errand's clothes and skin, but, curiously, not one visible scratch on her. It was hard to tell with all the dirt patches all over her, but Bianca was 99% sure that under all the grunge Errand's body was unblemished. Bianca smirked. Looks like you've been through a rough night. Very rough, was Errand's only reply. Reserved. She didn't slouch or try to make herself small. Bianca wasn't expecting Errand to be cooperative, especially given their current situation, but she was going to agree to help her eventually. Where are my manners? Before we begin, Zachary, get a basin with warm water and a towel so our friend here can wipe away all that dirt. Sorry, Errand, I can't let you go and have a shower. I'm not letting you out of my sight. On the surface, this looked like she was being nice within constraints of cautiousness, but she was subtly establishing dominance. Understandable, Errand curtly said. She wasn't going to give her anything to go on, was she? It would have been easier if Errand lashed out or got angry because she was captured or that they knocked out Amber. All of that was accounted for in the script. But she didn't even ask any question beyond if Amber was all right. Bianca needed to keep the conversation going while waiting for Zachary to not lose momentum and control despite Errand's stonewalling efforts. How lame was it to just awkwardly stare at each other? We've waited quite some time for you. I wasn't sure if you were going to come here. I was going to use Dean's phone to message you to come, but the signal is still down. Anyway, glad you're here. How long was it since we last met? Since we met at Arthuria Infinity? The bar at the top of the hotel? Let me see. Today. Bianca checked her phone. 12 minutes past 3 in the morning. Yesterday, I mean, time flies. At the club? I don't know. She wasn't going to deny she was at Eve. She didn't even react to being called Madame Blanchette earlier. Essentially, the message was, so you caught me, now what? Bianca observed Errand's body language. You were in quite a bind when we left you. Instead of answering, Errand examined herself and adjusted her outfit so the tears wouldn't be as revealing. Bianca continued, I was worried something bad happened to you when I saw the large crater on the news. Such a relief I was able to escape before the explosion. Oh, and you too. Errand was trying to scratch off the clump of caked mud on her knee while checking behind her, making it obvious she was more interested in waiting for Zachary. An advanced form of looking at the watch move. She's also assessing me while telegraphing I don't fully have the upper hand. If Errand displayed the powers she used in the arena, then, admittedly, she had the advantage. There was nothing they could do if that was the case. Bianca surmised, however, that she had to go through transformations, at least 2 of them, to get to her unstoppable, gigantic beast state. The conditions for the transformation? Bianca didn't know. Her only security for now was the threat of Zachary killing Errand before she transformed, that and having Amber. Even if Zachary couldn't stop Errand, she wouldn't haphazardly go berserk here and endanger her best friend, would she? Despite her heart racing with excitement, Bianca continued with her nonchalant conversation as per the script. You know, I was just watching TV while waiting for you for an hour and a half maybe, after Amber went to sleep. Unwillingly, Errand said, still not looking at her. This would have meant a person was intimidated if it was some other situation, but Bianca didn't feel that at all from her. It can't be unwillingly if she didn't see it coming. Bianca giggled as she lightly pinched Amber's cheek. She was delighted Erin reacted when it came to Amber, the latter still breathing softly, asleep. She continued with her random topic. Like I said, my eyes hurt when I watch TV in the dark, or even when I use my laptop or phone. I had to remove my contacts. She showed Erin her silver contacts. But I didn't want to turn on the lights. No response once again. Let's just pretend you asked why I didn't switch on the lights. It's for the big reveal. If the lights are on, I'm sure you'd still enter the house. But I wanted to try that thing. Oh, Zachary is here. He even brought you a hot cup of coffee and a blanket. See, I'm nice. Thank you, Erin said to Zachary instead of her. Bianca's left lower eyelid slightly twitched at that. I was saying I wanted to try that thing in the movies where the villain is in the dark and then the lights turn on when the protagonist enters the room. Usually, the villain has a hostage. Bianca looked down at Amber. Okay, this isn't what it looks like. Just a clarification, I'm not saying I'm the villain, I'm your friend. I'm not the villain because I'm the main character. And Amber isn't my hostage. She was a negotiation accessory. Erin took a sip of coffee, then went to work wiping herself with the towel. I can't get a read on her. It didn't frustrate Bianca. On the contrary, she was pleased Erin wasn't reacting normally. An Adumbry wouldn't react like a normal person after all. I've always wondered, what does the villain do while waiting for the protagonist to enter the room? I got my answer. I just watched TV and ate snacks. I didn't steal this food, just pointing out. Amber gave me popcorn because I craved some after our escape. It was apparent Erin was deliberately slow in wiping her arms and legs. Was she waiting for her power to charge? Was that how it worked? Or was she buying time to think of a plan? I guess I can start, Bianca said. She pretended she was about to begin reading from a script on her phone, but she was already a fourth of a way done with it. She ticked off most of the points to build her Aude. While her target was misled by the Aude she presented, she would build walls around her, the outside suddenly becoming the inside while the true inside would never be revealed. Erin Hartwell, first-year law student at Cresthorn Law. She read the information Zachary and Zazary compiled from the internet and all the databases they could hack before Erin arrived. Impressive resume. You even interned at Wilkins Kingston. And that was before you got accepted to Cresthorn. Wow. No reaction to flattery about things a normal person would be proud of. This meant she got her powers recently. Pull back a bit on the flattery. Evaluate her relationship with other people to find leverage. All of these accomplishments are to be expected from a Cresthorn Law student. I must say that even your parents are impressive. Both of them have PhDs at AIT. Did they meet there? Bianca enumerated the data on Erin's parents they dug up in the short time they had, first about her father, then her mother. Not only did she want to see what Erin thought of her parents, she was also hinting she knew a whole lot more than she was letting on. This was both a Aude and part of the wall. There was an almost unnoticeable nod from Erin at the mention of her father. Your mother works as a senior consultant at the Greaves Bioaugmentronics headquarters. Your father, on the other hand, was the site director of the UN facility researching the Devliocean sinkhole in the Philippines. I've always wondered what's in there. There's nothing there, Erin said, more to herself. Continuing on with the father topic then. I always wanted to go there. I've only seen videos of that place. A gigantic hole in the sea where Corbring Devliocean sunk several islands to destroy a purple bloom. Defying all logic, just a huge hole where water, to this day, keeps draining in. Just imagine the otherworldly power that caused it. Sometimes it makes me relieved to know all the high overseers are in their slumber cycle right now. Nonetheless, the sinkhole is one of the unexplained wonders of this world. Maybe we can go there and you can introduce me to your faith. Zachary bent down and whispered in her ear. Bianca gasped. Oh my, I didn't see in my notes your father died. It was a long time ago. Let's see, it's here at the bottom of my notes. It wasn't, it was at the top. And Zachary's part was also written in the script, which was why Bianca had to wait for him to return. He died when you were 13. I missed a couple of news articles here. An accident. I'm so sorry. Aaron shrugged. I hope you're not offended by all the digging around we did. Mislead. Build a wall. To be honest, we researched all we could about you so it would look like we have a lot of information. Admit one wall was fake, to misdirect attention from the thicker wall built behind it. And I'm just so curious about the background of a person like you. It's so weird, a person whose parents both made substantial contributions in the fight against the Adumbri, and who herself entered Crest Horn, would become one. One what? An Adumbri. Time for a rapid fire. I know Amber is not a normal human, she has an artificial core giving her powers. If you ask me, Corebrings will consider her a higher priority target than an actual Adumbri. Planting a seed of a possible bargaining chip. I know she's with a group of people with artificial cores. They're fighting the Mark and Marcy brothers, planning to bring down their whole operation before actual Corebrings step in and start wiping out people like back during the Labor Day purge. Honestly, I don't really care about them, I'm more interested in you. I know you're sort of part of their group, but you don't have an artificial core. Amber told me you didn't want to accept one and decided to stay a normal human. But the truth is that you're an Adumbri, Bianca was going to add, aren't you, but that wasn't in the script. She decided she wouldn't outright ask Aaron to confirm anything. Amber's protecting you from Mark and Big Marcy. She accepted the artificial core and gave up her humanity to protect her friend. It's interesting to know what she would think when it turns out her friend was an Adumbri all along. And not just any Adumbri, the one that call. Are you threatening me? Not particularly. No. And how I found out about you? You asked Dean. Big deal. Bianca's eyelid twitched again. According to the script, she wouldn't reveal to Aaron how she found out about her. Logical. Would give her the upper hand. But this wouldn't do. Aaron is wrong, it was all from Amber. She was being belittled. She dug her nails into her palm. Don't. She lowered her clenched hand to Amber's side so Aaron wouldn't see it. It wasn't like that at all, Bianca said hesitantly, unable to ignore Aaron's wrong assumption. I bet Dean wanted to save you, Aaron said. She tossed the towel to the basin on the table and sat back, crossing her legs. Did she say something like, you're still human, there's still hope? And then she revealed they're secret superheroes trying to fight Adumbri in their own way. I bet that's what happened. Typical Amber Dean. Bianca chewed her tongue. She already said something off script, but she couldn't drop this matter. Aaron thought she had uncovered everything that happened. She had to show her how wrong she was. You and your group pretended to be my crew to get into Eve. Cut off the power. And when the lights came back on, you and Amber were already disguised as customers of the club. You're probably thinking how I knew about it. Simple. When I met Amber at the club, I wondered why she didn't bring you along with her into the arena. Weren't you supposed to be her best friend that knows her secret? That's the story you told me when we first met. I recalled you even said Amber was squeamish so she doesn't attend the arena fights. Why wouldn't you, her best friend, accompany her then? You had Zachary find me. Correct, Bianca said. She confirmed Aaron's guess to trick her into thinking she was still following everything. Zachary is usually the one guarding me and Zachary watches the crowds. Like at Arthuria, Zachary was beside me while Zachary was among my fans. Zaz is guarding you now because I thought it will make you more comfortable that a woman is beside you instead of a man. How considerate, Aaron said flatly. I know, right? She retorted without missing a beat. Zachary accompanied me underground while Zachary stayed behind at the club. I ordered him to look for you. Inconspicuously, of course. And he found you. That would have been the end of it. Maybe you just didn't like going to the arena too, like your best friend. Maybe you were just waiting for Amber until she finished with her business in the arena. How would I know? But then you know what you did. This was the second question she directly asked Aaron. It wasn't one of the questions listed in her script. Asking questions gave the other party power, which was why each question had to be calculated beforehand. But she made an exception because she had to take Aaron down a notch. She was already way off the script anyway. You know what you did, she repeated, her tone implying Aaron made a mistake. I transformed. Wrong, Bianca said matter-of-factly. You suddenly disappeared. Zachary wasn't trailing you or anything. But he did notice when you didn't return to your table with an unfinished meal still on your plate. Nothing suspicious yet. Maybe you were on a diet. He went to ask people at the entrance if they saw you leave. They didn't. Weird. Then he asked around some more. And no one saw you. Weirder. He reported it to me. Your phone. Yes, she said, cutting off Aaron, preventing her from explaining whatever she realized. Phones don't have a signal that deep underground, but I could communicate with Zachary using my phone. I did mention that when we were at the arena. Thanks for confirming you were there. She chuckled. Got her. Don't try to be clever with me. Before Aaron could respond, Bianca went on, I ordered Zachary to check the security footage and look for you. Which wasn't easy. Zachary had to incapacitate the guards. I could have gotten in trouble for that, but I didn't care. I had to find out who you were. It wasn't too much of an inconvenience, was it, Zach? It wasn't, Miss Bianca. That's where he saw that whole switcheroo thing you and your group pulled to get in. It was easy to spot if you already knew who you were looking for. He informed me immediately, so I knew that you and Amber weren't one of us way before Amber said anything to me. Zach traced your movements on the recordings from when Amber left you up to the time you went inside the restroom. And I didn't come out. And you didn't come out. Instead, a different woman exited the restroom. There was no footage of her entering. Zachary checked the women's restroom to look for any hidden tunnel or path you could have used, but there was nothing. He sent me another message, describing this mysterious woman. Wouldn't you know it, she was right in front of me. I continued to observe the two of you. Amber was saying the transformed you supposedly liked the Little Red Riding Hood theme, even calling you Madame Blanchette. There are many versions of the Little Red Riding Hood tale, and the 1888 story by Charles Morel was probably the only version where the little girl was given a name Blanchette. Amber might have read about it somewhere and just blurted it out without knowing that Blanchette had a golden hood instead of a red one. That's when it dawned on me she knew the transformed you, but she didn't know she was you, Aaron. She didn't seem to think you, as Madame Blanchette, were an ally, but she didn't regard you as an enemy either. You reported me somehow. When you were fighting in the arena and Dean was captured by the guards, I got a call from Zachary. He said the bid was going to raid the club. The call was abruptly cut off. The bid must have placed a signal jamming field over the entire area, that was the only way our special signal would be blocked. It was a dire situation. Aaron said, that's why you helped Dean. You thought we were with the bid. The most plausible conclusion given the facts I had at that moment. Either you or Amber were with the bid. Or both of you, and you were a sleeper agent, which would explain why she didn't know who you actually were. Whatever it was, I decided to help Dean, and almost immediately found she wasn't with the bid. Bianca burst out laughing. Can you imagine it? The night I went to the club was the night all these groups decided to go there too. What's up with all of you? Funny, yeah. Even after finding out she wasn't with the bid, I still helped Dean. You know why? Bianca held up a finger. Don't answer that. Because you wouldn't figure it out. Time to go back to the script. Bianca pulled up a picture on her phone and showed it to Aaron. Do you know what this is? Not really. A bit blurry. Bianca handed her phone to Zachary so he could show it to Aaron. She wasn't going near her, she wanted to stick with Amber to be safe. One of my sources provided me with that picture. He guaranteed it wasn't fake. A picture of an Adumbry with the form of a gigantic werewolf that attacked one of the bases of the Mark brothers, almost mysteriously disappearing afterwards. No point denying. I wasn't going to. She grinned from ear to ear. Awesome. I thought I was going to have a hard time making you admit it. Before continuing with my story why I helped Dean because of that picture, I'm going to give a little background about myself and what I want. I hope I'm not going to bore you with this. Aaron took another sip of the coffee. It's not like I have any choice but to listen. Splendid. You see, Mark and Big Marcy have dealings with my father. It's connected with the Red Island. I'm not sure in what way. My family owns the Royal Saressa Cruise Lines, I'm assuming they take a cruise ship to the Red Island. You guys are interested in that, right? At least Amber said she was. For a long time, Mark was trying to convince my father to become an Adumbry, he would have a greater hold over him if he did. But Dad would have none of it. Next, they tried to convince me. I actually wanted to become an Adumbry for personal reasons, reasons grander than that nonsense, have power, live forever, all that crap. However, I also didn't agree because all the parts to my plan weren't complete yet. That is until I found you, or at least that picture of you. You see, Aaron, I've been an overachiever all my life. I guess you are too. All of those achievements, awards, the things that make our resume look like a menu of a 5-star restaurant, those are normal to people like us. If I calculate I can reach the top of a certain field with a bit more effort, I stop. I don't go all out. Why? Because I know I'm going to win anyway. And reaching the absolute top takes a lot of time. Time I don't have. I move on to a different challenge. Sports, dancing, singing, acting, even cooking, managing a business. Am I supposed to say, wow? Aaron said. Is this a bragging contest? You can say, wow, if you want to. There are so many challenges out there, both physical and mental. I don't have time to finish all of them. I don't have time to prove to myself I'm an awesome person. Physical activities especially take a lot of time to prepare for and accomplish. Augment yours. No. That's cheating. Augmentations, enhancements, psycho-conditioning pills, drugs to boost brain power. All cheating. Even my beauty regimen is all natural. No surgeries, no whatever. I don't want to succeed by cheating. Is it even chia? Yes, it is. It won't be cheating if no one knows. So, you wanted to turn into an Adumbry to have super strength for the physical challenges you take on? What? That's dumb. That's also cheating. I was saying I didn't have time to finish all of the challenges in my lifetime. So, you wanted to extend your life by becoming an Adam. Will you let me finish? Bianca snarled. Aren't you glad I'm replying to you now? Aaron said with a friendly smile. She was interested. Perfect. Bianca laughed. Yes, thanks for that. I'm sorry I acted out. I just get so agitated when it comes to my goal. All in the script. Long story short, I'm going to attempt the ultimate challenge. If I succeed, it means I can complete all the other challenges available in this world. There's no need to attempt all of them. Makes sense. And what's this ultimate challenge? It's what you're doing, actually, she replied. I want to do what you're doing. I want to have an Adumbry infect me, and I'm going to resist the Adumbry. I will beat the Adumbry and have full control of my body. That is the ultimate challenge. Isn't that what the clients of Mark are already doing? No, that's different. They're using all sorts of methods to aid them. I think they're even damaging their brain and nervous system by doing it. That's cheating. I'm going to do it all on my own. But I'm not going in blind. I researched and researched. I paid so many people to find information, I used the connections of my father. Eventually, someone told me that there was a group of Adumbri that can control themselves. They can use the full power bestowed by the Adumbri with their own free will. The clients of Mark can't do that, by the way. They have to be careful because they'd still lose control of themselves if they pushed too hard. That's why all of them are so weak, getting slaughtered like cattle by the bid agents. This group my source referred to was different. Is there really such a group? Aaron asked. Bianca smiled even wider, if that was even possible. She felt Aaron genuinely didn't know what she was talking about. This confirmed her hypothesis that Aaron only got her powers recently. Which meant she controlled her Adumbri all on her own, the best resource person Bianca could possibly ask for. Yes, they exist. At least according to my source. They're so powerful they can fight Corbrings. The normal ones anyway. They'll probably die fighting an overseer, which is why they are in hiding. My source had no clue where to even start looking for them. And then you found me. Yes. My source wasn't sure if you were part of the group he mentioned, but he was sure you could control your powers. And I have the proof here right in front of me. You, perfectly sane after the havoc you wreaked at the club. I want your help in attempting the ultimate challenge. I don't know. I know. We'll figure out how you're able to control the Adumbri when myriad others failed. I'm not even infected yet. Plenty of time. Does that involve experimenting on me? That's nice to hear, Aaron dear. Spooky Aaron flipped the bacon. She could just snap her fingers and conjure breakfast in a flash if she wanted, yet she chose to go through all these theatrics. We were really the same. Bianca was like me too, with all of those nonsense interactions before getting to her point. My actions usually had so much padding to hide my true intentions that I was surprised my boobs didn't appear bigger. You sound like my mother, I said. We look the same anyway, so you could be. And you're older than me. Older? If you mean that I existed long before you did, then yeah. Before your world even. And I'll exist long after you're gone. But actual age to know about that. Don't get me started with how time works. Oh. Since you said I sounded like your mother, how about you tell me about your new friend? Vanessa? She's great, too bad she. Not her. Bianca. I saw you had fun talking with her. She transferred the bacon and eggs to a plate and carried it to me. Bianca? My friend? I wouldn't go as far as saying that. It's impossible to be friends with someone like her like me. But I did enjoy chatting with her. It's a different kind of experience interacting with someone like me. I suddenly had a knife and fork in hand, unaware of how they got there. I sliced a small piece of bacon and ate it. It was very good, but there was something missing in the taste. You're not going to eat? You don't even know what I eat. Spooky Erin sat in front of me, propped her chin on the palm of her gauntlet, her elbow on the table. A huge smile was on her face. Tell me all about it. You don't have anyone to share it with, might as well share it with me. Was she telling me to entertain her? Sure. Not only did I want to keep her happy so she wouldn't do anything bad to me, but she was right, I wanted to brag about my mental and verbal sparring with Bianca. Normally, I couldn't tell anyone how I manipulated people, but it was different when it came to Spooky Erin. She was already in my head. I guess I'll start with the face I used. It was really easy to modify it for Bianca. I just went along with what she assumed, that my main goal was to protect Dean. I barely had to do anything since she did all the work. Is that so? It actually worked to my advantage that it was her assumption. I was able to maintain the upper hand. I bet she was thinking I didn't want to use my power because Dean might get hurt if a fight ensued, which wasn't true at all. Our conversation would have gone a different route if she knew she could just order Zazuri to kill me before I could transform. I did all I could to sell her that story. 50% discount on that item. Buy one take one. Just full-on mega sale. I even acted tough as if I didn't care about Dean. I would try to save her if possible because I'm the bestest friend ever, but not to my own detriment. So, I wasn't really acting, I guess. I'm confused. I giggled at the convoluted mess of my mind. Spooky Erin snickered along with me, her laughter inside my head was infectious. It was so funny that you didn't look into her eyes. Oh, that. Yeah. Even if I had a face on, my eyes are sort of empty if you pay really close attention to them. Most people don't. I was afraid Bianca would realize we were the same if I tried to maintain eye contact. I wonder what she thought about that. Good job fooling her. I made that breakfast to congratulate you. Eat some more. I finished a slice of bacon and started on the eggs to appease her. It was easy because I know what she is. My actions confirmed her theory, so her ego would prevent her from even considering I was trying to fool her. She was focused on thinking she had me. Kind of like a confirmation bias thing, but not really. I even threw her some crumbs to lead her on, feed into her belief she was unraveling me. Like how I reacted when she talked about my father. I did that so she wouldn't think of threatening Mom but would instead try to get to me through my memories of Dad. Her tactics are really good against a normal person. Too bad she faced me. I did learn a lot though. Like what? Like one of the main weaknesses of my kind or our kind, since we're the same. Mayumayumiya. Normal people are like that too. Everyone wants recognition from others, but our kind even more so, recognition, not appreciation or admiration. I'm guilty of that sometimes, but it's very enlightening to see it in action with Bianca. I wasn't exactly interested how she knew about me. I'm sure I made a lot of mistakes in hiding my identity, this being my first time as a monster and all. But I knew she didn't want to reveal how much information she had on me, so I made it a game to extract as much as I could from her. I even made blatantly wrong guesses so she'd correct me. If she didn't think she had the upper hand, I couldn't have reeled her in that easily. Wait a minute, you're doing it to me too. Doing what? She smiled innocently, then took a sip from a glass of orange juice. I didn't notice I also had a glass by my side. Magic orange juice. I'm not doing anything. You're making me monologue too. Both of us laughed, Spooky Erin's laughter in sync with mine in my own head. Supplemental lessons. Orange juice cheers. She raised her glass. I clinked mine with hers. Are you going to help her with her plan? I'll tag along for sure, but I don't trust her. Lifestyle coach. Who does she think she's fooling? Our kind don't want anyone telling us what to do. She wants to keep me around, that I'm sure of. But why? I think she's just telling me half-truths. That's a habit of mine too. You don't trust her yet you'll help her. After finishing the egg whites, I plopped the whole egg yolk in my mouth. I chewed it slowly before answering, formulating how to best get my thoughts across without angering Spooky Erin. I heard something interesting from Bianca, I said. She said there's a group of people who can prevent an Adumbri taking over their minds through sheer willpower alone while retaining their supernatural abilities. Spooky Erin tilted her head to the side. I'm not saying I want to shoo you away. I didn't mean that. But that's what it sounds like. She pouted. You don't want me around anymore. Don't be sad. I'm thinking of making this into a game. It's going to be fun, I promise. A game? Yeah, I'll try to gain control of my body through whatever means I can find. That's why I'm teaming up with Bianca. I'm exploring all avenues. You're not going to try with just willpower. She didn't say her usual line that she wasn't going to try to control my body because we were the same. She was seriously considering this. Honestly, I'm not sure I could do that. I don't even know if I can do what Bianca thinks I could. It's not going to be entertaining with just me. I think that already sounds fun. But, I hastily added. But you're going to have more fun watching me interact with different groups. The group Bianca was talking about, if we can find them. There's Dario's group, the mysterious professor backing them up, the Adumbrian Division proxy, bid agents. It's going to be better than any reality TV show my world has to offer. Okay. That's on your part. How would that be a game to me? Tell me what you want to add so that it's fair. This was a very dangerous gamble. Normally, I should have stacked the rules in my favor. It was insane to give the other party the chance to add rules. But I couldn't do that with Spooky Errand because she could read my mind. I couldn't trick her with this. Instead, I was indirectly telling her I was going to entertain her in return for giving me a chance to take control of my body, which was why I let her add in rules. Perhaps the only trick, if it could even be considered one, that I used was to suggest I try every method I could find in the hopes that she'd suggest I try it with only my willpower. I calmly sipped my drink, or as calmly as one could while trying to bargain with an interdimensional being who was trying to take over my body. I don't have anything to add. I almost choked on my orange juice in surprise. You just have fun with your game. I'll cheer you on. Really? But she stood up and went behind my seat. I don't want my precious Aaron to die. You're doing well so far compared to the last one. The last one? I wasn't surprised if she possessed someone else before me. Did that person get killed by a Corbring? Or did Spooky Aaron do something bad to her? I didn't speak and just went on eating. You'll face many powerful enemies in your game. You know that, right? I nodded. I don't think the first face you borrowed will be enough. It's too restrictive, too limited. She placed her hands on my shoulders. You need more power. Different kinds of power. I looked back at her. What power? Her gauntlet glowed as golden liquid rose out of the white gem in the middle of her palm. I'm offering you this. The golden liquid slowly formed the shape of a mask. It was the face of a mannequin, silver chrome in color, with a weird symbol on its forehead. You're going to need more faces in the future. How about this one next? Are you going to give that to me? I would if I wanted to, but I can't. You need to help me out first. It's not easy to send this over to your world. I need power from your end. I need you to consume. She didn't need to tell me what I needed to consume because I already knew. I was right. She was the reason I had the unexplained urge to consume Adumbri. You're going to turn me into a cocoon or something? Like the one I saw in the underground arena? You're telling me I need to consume Adumbri to get that face? Your words, not mine. And you already started doing it. She meant the second crystal growing on my palm. And I'm going to get more power the more I consume. I just want to help you in your game. She closed her hand and the face vanished. She pumped her hands in the air and cheered. Go Errand. Woo. I started laughing as I realized why she didn't bother to add rules to my game. She was sure I was going to need her help in the future in achieving my goal of having complete control of my body while keeping the power she bestowed upon me. I might be playing solitaire, but she was keeping some of the cards of the deck and was asking for other cards in exchange for them. Essentially, there was no way I could win. I liked those odds. Thank you very much for your help, I said. I look forward to getting that face in the future. Good girl, she said, planting a kiss on my cheeks, even worse than the kiss of Judas. I enjoyed this chat with you. Do entertain me. See you next time. You can count on it. Good. Bye. She was gone. And I was back in the living room with Dean sleeping on my lap. Beep. 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 I reached for my phone on the coffee table while making sure not to wake up Dean. February 2nd, 2020, 6:50 a.m., sunrise, La Esperanza City, California, came my daily alert. Sunlight was only starting to push back the darkness outside. Waking birds chirped. Wind rustled the leaves of the trees surrounding Dean's pool. The smell of peanut butter from a small dried splotch stuck on the side of my mouth. I licked it. I'm gross, I know, confirming from the taste it was indeed peanut butter. This was the real world. Real sofa, real pillows, the TV, the potted plants. That driftwood side cabinet looked real, as well as the bronze lamp on top of it, and the eyeball beside it too. The book seemed real, the curtain's eyeball. I jumped to my feet and picked up the coffee table beside the sofa, raising it above my head as a weapon. "Well, what's going on?" Dean groggily said, waking because I suddenly moved away. "Dean, it's nothing." I placed the table back where it belonged before she could fully wake up. "There's just, the eyeball wasn't there anymore." Was I imagining things? It looked like one of Vanessa's eyeball familiars. I walked over to the side cabinet and moved the lamp to check where it could have gone. "Erin. You're alive." She jumped on me while I was rummaging through the cabinet's drawers. She felt almost weightless, which confused me until I remembered that I had super strength. I dropped to the floor maybe a second too late, but I hoped she didn't notice it. "Yeah. I'm alive," I said. We both laughed as we rolled across the floor. "Didn't Bianca tell you I was safe?" Dean hugged me tightly. "She did. But I wasn't sure whether to believe it or not. She pulled me up. Sorry for jumping on you." She exhaled, shaking her hands like they were cold. "Phew. I'm just so happy you're safe. I hope the others are safe too." There was still no signal when I checked my phone a moment ago. I wasn't sure if they were able to get far away before the bid agents self-destructed. They're experienced enough not to get caught by the police. I'm sure they can take care of themselves. Dean dabbed her eyes with her shirt. "Are you okay? It's just so overwhelming, you know. Everything we went through. I'm sure what you went through was way worse than mine. I was just hiding with Bianca's crew." I awkwardly stood while Dean sobbed. "Should I hug her?" "Don't want to. We hugged enough already. If it'll make you feel better, how about you tell me what happened? I'll make breakfast while we chat." She hopped happily to the kitchen. Weird mood swing. "Erin." Dean yelled from the kitchen. "What do you want to eat?" "Bacon and eggs," I called back. I needed a big breakfast to start the first day of the game between me and Spooky Erin. This is going to be fun. Author's Retrospective, Arc 1 and 2. After more than 7 months of writing to reach this point of the story, I decided to share my thoughts. Not only is this a personal thing, so I can assess what I've done so far, but I also want to share to you readers my thought process in this story, my inspirations, and the ideas I want to explore. Conceiving this story/inspirations. Female main character. When I started reading English translations of light novels and then moving on to web novels, I always read stories with male MCs. Eventually, I also tried web novels with female leads, most notably Worm. In recent years, there's been some controversy regarding female MCs in books and especially movies about them being Mary Sues, as well as other criticisms. I then thought, how about I try my hand at writing a female MC? I challenged myself to write a good female MC, even though a male MC would have made this type of story more popular. Psychopath main character. I didn't want to have a normal protagonist. I wanted something very different. How about a psychopath? There are many stories with supposedly psychopath MCs, but I wasn't very sure with their depiction. At first, I shelved the idea because I could see how hard it will be to write an actual psychopath MC, and tried to find some other peculiar defining trait for my MC. Then I came upon the book Gone Girl with a female psychopath MC. It changed my perspective on writing psychopath character. I'm not going to spoil anything with the book, just that it's very different from other psychopath stories which mostly dwell on killings and shock value. Gone Girl goes deep in the mind of a psychopath, and that inspired me. Furthermore, male and female psychopath have differences, which I considered as an interesting challenge to write. World building, core brings. There are many stories with a superpowered group maintaining peace and stability, but my inspiration for the core brings are the Knights in Night Run. It's not a famous webtoon, so many might not be familiar with it. Give it a try. I even used the name Purple Bloom in homage to the purple flower in Night Run. Alternative history. Instead of setting it in the far future like Night Run, I set it instead in an alternate history Earth. And the inspiration for that is SCP. You probably got a slight feel of SCP with the bid. There are other organizations mentioned in the story that will play a bigger role in the future. Group of people with powers. There's been mention that this story has a worm feel to it at the start. I've read the entirety of Worm, Twig, and Pact. So Wildbow's various groups of superpowered people has inspired me greatly, but my main inspiration for having a group of people with powers as part of the main cast is Animorphs. Goes to show that I'm a 90s kid. Basically, it's Gantz/Evangelion for kids that got past censors because no one expected that kind of content to be in a children's book with goofy covers. Ideas I want to explore in this story. Relatability. Perhaps one of the main tips for new writers like me is to make your characters relatable. Instead of making a conventionally relatable MC, I made a psychopath MC. So am I violating that tip I mentioned? Nope. I believe that all of us have psychopathic traits here and there. You'll find yourself relating to Erend in one way or another, even in weird ways. It is a social experiment of sorts. Starting small in most stories with OPMCs, or even YAs, the MC will become one of the most important person in the story quickly, like they'll lead the rebellion, have the secret weapon, etc. I'm not saying that's bad. If the story is geared for enjoyment and power fantasy, then that's the way to do it. However, I intend to write this story for a long time, and making the MC immediately an important player will put a time limit to the story, and I could easily write myself into a corner. Another reason we're starting very small in scale and taking it slow is because I want to explore how Erin's psychopath mind evolves through her experiences, before she becomes an evil mastermind in the far future of this story. Absolutes are right. If you've noticed, the Corbrings and the Bid and other people in authority take a black and white stance when it comes to Adumbri. Transposing this to other stories, you may have an iron-fisted government and the MC will lead a rebellion, hoping to change the world into something in the middle ground. That is not the case here. I wanted to explore a story with a black and white figure of authority that is not evil, that is actually right. Why? Because our MC is a psychopath who can't see black and white. Isn't that an interesting twist to the usual setup? Not sure how this will go. No main villain. I got this idea from Overlord. It's pretty famous, so I think many of you know of it. There's no villain in Overlord. You may say the MC is the villain, but not really, because he's just trying to protect his own. Can't also say his enemies are the villains in the traditional sense. For one, they pose no threat to him. And they don't even know about him and are just trying to survive. I'm trying out that setup in this story. I think readers might wonder why this story doesn't have a clear-cut villain. But as the story progresses, I hope it becomes clearer what I'm aiming for. Let's see how this pans out. Depicting a psychopath MC. There are plenty depictions of psychopaths in media, including in manga and light novels/web novels. Usually, what is branded as a psychopath MC is a revenge story where the MC is bullied/oppressed/betrayed and then he goes on a killing spree. That's not a psychopath. Psychopaths can't even muster the emotions to get angry like that. With that backdrop, many readers come into Rend expecting that serial killer MC. My fault actually, because the start of the story, before the edits, gave a wrong impression. Anyway, it is hard to put myself into the mind of a psychopath, which is why the first arc's characterization of Erend is shaky before I eventually got to revising it to be more consistent. What emotions do people like me feel? A lot, actually. Many portrayed us as emotionless husks. Again, not true. We weren't completely devoid of emotions. I was certain I wasn't, but we do experience it differently than normal people. That was the reason I called some of my emotions as approximations. I also couldn't hold a specific emotion for long, like I couldn't hold a grudge. Take Myra, for example. I was no longer angry with her even though she had tried to kill me. At that time, I was, not anymore. I think normal people would be angry at their would-be murderer forever or could also choose to forgive them. Neither was the case with me. On an emotional level, I just didn't care. However, that didn't mean I was letting her off the hook. She still needed to be punished, and I was going to set up her death in a fitting way as rule number 4 required. Something ironic, something funny. It's just the rules. All business. This wasn't about revenge. Never was. I could have a bit of fun on the side though. Emotions or their approximations had no part in the applications of the rules. Same with the law. Which was why Lady Justice had a blindfold on. Impartiality in such, yada, yada. Which begs the question, how could Lady Justice see the scales of justice if she's blindfolded? Moving back on topic, I wasn't sure how to explain this difference in emotion between my kind and normal people. How could someone blind since birth explain to a person with sight how they viewed the world? I'd assume they just saw black, but I was sure that wasn't the case. A more outlandish view, if we could converse with monkeys, could we relate or understand their experience of having a fifth limb in the form of their powerful tails? Could a mantis shrimp explain to us the colors it could see but we could never ever visualize? Could we understand how they saw the world? Perhaps a more apt and understandable analogy would be an experience of mine when I took judo classes back in undergrad. We had elective PE classes and were free to choose what we wanted from the wide offerings of the college. Fancy college, right? I recalled around that time, a student was assaulted coming home from a late-night party, so my group of approximate friends wanted to take self-defense lessons and I got dragged along. There was this submission hold in judo that we just called chicken wing hold. I forgot the Japanese name for it. Basically, it was a bent arm lock used to apply pressure on the elbow or the shoulder. I couldn't, for the life of me, understand how to execute that move. Why? Because I couldn't feel pain when that move was done to me. It turned out I had a very flexible shoulder joint. I've popped my shoulder a few times in the past and could pop it back in myself with only slight discomfort. Emotions for me were like that judo move. I could never experience them in the same way as normal people, hence I could never relate to them. Like when I used that move on an opponent, I just couldn't understand why she was feeling pain because that move didn't work on me. For all I knew, she was just faking it. Which was probably why it was easy for people like me to be brutally violent, both physically and emotionally. We just couldn't relate to the suffering we caused. Phew. Profound thoughts just after lunch. I was reminded by that judo thing because Dean kept on telling me to take self-defense classes with her as if knowing grappling techniques was going to help against Adumbri or bid agents. I guess some people just liked their security blankets. The same in law school, many students printed or photocopied piles of notes and paint pages with highlighters even though it wasn't useful other than to give the impression of being prepared for exams. My phone buzzed. I checked it and groaned. Dean forwarded to me several posters of mixed martial arts lessons we could take. She also told me she was going to pay for both of us. Let's just wait for all of this to blow over, I texted her. Fine then. Maybe next week or so, she replied. Promise you'll take them with me. I rolled my eyes while typing, I promise. Where are you? Did you eat lunch yet? I just finished eating at Jenny's, I told her, capitalizing "Mom" and adding in a couple of smiley faces at the end. "Just checking," was her message. "Where are you now? You didn't answer me." "So bossy," I added in another smiley to show I was kidding. "I'm having hot cocoa while studying at a cafe a block from Jenny's." Her messages were relentless, checking up on me, telling me to go to her house. Her latest text was that errand: "Come back to Cresthorn and wait for my class to end so we can go home together. It's safer." She was annoyingly paranoid now for some reason. Weirdo. Yesterday, she was moping and inconsolable, barely talking, worried about something she didn't want to tell me. I got slightly concerned she might have realized I was the monster she saved in the arena. Could she have peered into my possible futures with our connection and spotted me transforming back into human form? Don't think so. If she discovered my secret, she would have already confronted me. At least that was what I expected from her personality. I was wrong about her once though. I didn't expect her to accept an artificial core, yet she did. I may be wrong again, but my instincts told me her problems weren't connected to my secret. More likely, she was mentally burdened by the weight of everything she went through. The whole city was in panic mode. The casualties were too high for a normal bid operation, so people began speculating they fought something not so normal even by Adumbree standards. News outlets, possibly under directives from the bid, were quick to allay the fears of the public, spinning a story that it was nothing serious, just a criminal organization engaged in the trade of illegal Adumbree parts. No real living Adumbree in this city, none of that they said. Unfortunately, the news informed us, the criminals also smuggled heavy weaponry and explosives which detonated during the fight. That was the cause of the massive explosion. I could understand why they didn't want to release the true story of the night's events. We watched it all unfold on TV last Sunday. We, being Dean and me. Her sister decided to stay at her boyfriend's place, so we had the house to ourselves and could discuss freely. We were eventually able to contact the others and confirmed everyone was still in one piece. Dean's anxiety lessened. It was already getting annoying pretending to care about the safety of the group while talking to her. We decided we'd all stay low and keep safe. Don't contact each other. Don't act suspiciously. Continue with our lives. Keep safe. Remember, we don't know nothing about anything. Dean was still fine last Sunday. But by yesterday, something was weird with her. I did ask her what was wrong, being a good friend, but I didn't pry too much because I was too tired to pretend to care. It was probably something stupid like her conscience bothered by all the people who died. She couldn't have done anything to save them anyway. You should listen to your class, I told her. Am I too annoying? She answered. I'm just worried. Worried about what? I paused, thinking about what could shut her up. Nothing to worry about. The bid is here. We're safe. And send. Just be careful. She eventually replied, getting the hint to watch the messages we sent. Yep, I know. I'm studying here. I sighed. Fine, I'm going to be considerate. Tell me later when you're leaving Cresthorn. I'll go to Podium and we can meet there. Buying something. There, now she'd feel like she was keeping me safe by meeting me later. Dean would kill me if she knew where I was. I was actually going near the crater. Criminals always return to the scene of the crime, a belief so prevalent it was a staple trope in crime mystery TV shows or movies. It was like when one posts a picture on social media and then checks later if someone liked or commented on it. I don't do that though. I barely maintain my social media accounts because of rule number 16. The more extreme reasons for returning to the crime scene could be on the sexual deviant side. The perpetrator might get off from it, or something. It still stemmed from the need to check one's handiwork and people's reaction to it. Well, I was going to a crime scene, but it wasn't necessarily my crime. And I couldn't get near the crater because the city cordoned off a radius of several blocks away from the center of the explosion. Still, I was symbolically going back to the crime scene. I was surprised to see a lot of people hanging out at the police blockade of the main road going to the quarantine part of the city. Most of them, as far as I could tell, had businesses located in the lockdown zone, trying to force their way through to check what happened to their properties. Others were just curious idiots who wanted to see the site of the battle, maybe eager to find Adumbri's body parts. A small group seemed to be relatives of people missing in the rubble, waiting vigilantly for any good news. Many of them wore masks, the medical ones. Actually, I also noticed a few students in my crim and consti classes earlier today wearing masks. Did they think the fallout from the explosion was dangerous or something? I could make fun of them for being too paranoid, but I wasn't sure if the air was safe. A lot of inhuman creatures were included in the massive barbecue pit. Who knew if there were contaminants in the smoke? I had to applaud these people for being business savvy. Shouting and marching. A group of angry protesters, about a couple of dozen or so, approached the police line. They weren't going to try and breach the cordon, they just wanted coverage from a media van that was stationed nearby. "Arrest the mayor," said one of the placards. "Mayor is an Adumbri." I read another. Is that true? I wondered out loud. "He's coddling these illegal traders in the city," a woman, probably his wife, chimed in. "Now, we don't even know if our store is still standing because of him. Something might have happened yesterday. I wasn't aware of it because I kept on changing the channel whenever Dean wanted to watch the news. It was annoying seeing her concerned face each time something related to our mission came up. But I did gloss over some articles about our mayor getting investigated when I browsed my phone while I ate lunch. A news reporter followed by a cameraman exited the TV5 van and rushed to cover the protest. "Excuse me," I said to the disgruntled couple and passed between them. They didn't mind me and joined the protesters in chanting. I made sure not to get in the sight of the camera. While it was cool to see the results of what happened that fateful Saturday night, I wasn't sure what I wanted here. Was I perhaps, deep down, still looking for traces of Vanessa? But she was already dead. It wasn't like I was some evil villain in the movie and left her before making sure she was dead. I saw her body burn. That eyeball I saw or I think I saw a couple of days ago was just a hallucination, my mind wobbly from having woken up from spooky Aaron's dreamland. Rob's garage wasn't anywhere near here, so I couldn't check it. And I wasn't dumb enough to show my face there. I stood still. Pondering. I guess I was just sad, or an approximation of sadness. Although we only knew each other for a short time, I did consider Vanessa a friend. Very weird behavior, I know. Some serial killers kept body parts of their victims because they considered them their friends, even talking to them. I wasn't at the point I was talking to Vanessa's bracelet, but I missed her somehow. Whoa, my bad. A man carrying a bunch of flyers bumped into me. I took a few steps back even if he didn't have the strength or weight to push me off balance. "It's fine," I said, adjusting my glasses. These were new. I lost the pair I wore while escaping the tunnels might have slipped out of my pockets. "Sorry miss," he said, stooping down to pick up his dropped flyers. I helped him. "What's this about?" I asked, looking at the writings on the paper. "Prayer worship of Lady Isolde of the Flying Fortress City." His face lit up in excitement. "The High Overseer Isolde has awoken. Praise the Mother Core. It's all over the news. Just think, okay? Just think. We get this disaster and then there's news of a High Overseer waking." Here are your flyers," I said. It was a religious group worshipping one of the High Overseers. I remembered they were more common when I was a kid before all of the High Overseers decided to sleep because the world became relatively peaceful. Worship a deity of a religion from ancient times or worship an actual godlike being hanging around on this earth. It was easy to see why many people jumped ship and started new religions. "You can keep one," he said. "Here's a pamphlet too." I'm guessing you haven't heard about her awakening yet because all of our news over here is about this. Thanks for this, I interrupted him. I have to go. We're just starting meetings. Saturday nights at 8:30. A woman screamed. A large crash followed. More screams. What the? There was gunfire. An unearthly shriek. Many people running away. Trouble. Time for me to transform and save the day. Just kidding. I followed the fleeing crowd. The police were fighting whatever it was. The popping from pistols sounded feeble after experiencing the thunderous barrage of Asserts weaponry. Then the gunfire stopped. I looked back and saw cops running out of the corner of the street followed by an overturned car skidding after them. They dove out of the way. The car came to a halt as it crashed into the traffic light at the intersection. The pole bent down, hitting a couple of cars on the road. More people joined the panic as the inhuman shrieks came closer. What the hell were we running away from? Adumbry, someone to the back of our stampeding herd screamed. It's an Adumbry. Everyone, run. Thanks for answering my question, guys. That dreaded name was picked up by others and echoed. Within seconds, everyone understood what was going on. Which meant more panic. Before the incident, putting the events of last Saturday lightly, people wouldn't readily believe there was an Adumbry in La Esperanza. After all, this was one of the safest cities in the country. Maybe it was a hoax, would have been the immediate reaction. Not anymore. Everyone now knew the danger that lurked in their midst, hidden in the bowels of the city. Was this Adumbry one of the survivors from the underground arena and only surfaced now? I slowed down because I wanted to see what it was. I knew I should be more concerned for my safety, but I was just having so much fun running with everyone. I imagined this was what a bull run in Spain felt like. Wait. Instead of running down the streets, I veered left, wading against the current of rushing people, inadvertently knocking down a couple of them because of how strong I was. I muttered a quick, "Sorry about that," as I continued to the sidewalk and entered a 2-story brick building. Several bookshelves, stacks of books in the middle, people browsing, a cashier, a cozy bookstore. All of them were surprised in varying degrees as I burst inside, still unaware of the commotion on the streets. I heavily breathed fake, I was far from tired and wore a terrified expression. There was a security camera behind the cashier counter. "Are you okay, miss?" A store attendant approached the door, curious about what was happening. "There's something out there," I stammered in an anxious voice. "A Adumbry. There's an Adumbry outside." "What?" she exclaimed in bewilderment, hearing something she didn't expect in the course of her employment. With terrific timing, shots cracked in the air followed by the terrible cries of the Adumbry. The monster's calls sounded curiously familiar. "Is it really an Adumbry?" she said. Murmuring. Everyone in the store was rooted on the spot, hesitantly looking at each other. "Run. Up." I ordered them. I led the way to the second floor of the building where various school and office supplies were sold. I heard them following me, their steps pounding up the stairs. One of the kids asked his mom what was going on. As I weaved through the shelves to get to the windows, I noted another security camera. It was just a small store with only one camera for each floor. Small enough for my purpose, but I had to be careful of my actions. Now, where was it? It should be nearby. "Oh my God," I said, selling shock and fear. It had the form of a serpent, its deep green scaly body was as thick as the banana boat I rode during my Hawaii vacation, and it was long enough to completely cover the car it caught when coiled around it. Maybe a serpent wasn't the correct comparison, for it had numerous human arms lining the length of its body on both sides. More like a cross between snake and centipede and human. It had an anguished human face, continuously bellowing in pain. This wasn't an Adumbry like the people mistakenly assumed. Just a failed experiment. A horribly mutated human. Still very dangerous. "Oh, My God, I repeated more melodramatically. What is that? However, I was cheering deep inside. Snake mutant buddy. You're alive. While it did try to kill me, I still felt a strange sort of kinship with it, like how after surviving a hellish exam the entire class was suddenly closer. Something like that. As fellow survivors, I now considered it my buddy. Some of its arms were mere bloody stumps, the open wounds healing but not regrowing. It had massive scars on its body, large swaths of scales ripped off, the flesh oozing green slime, even large chunks just missing. I had a hunch about what happened to it. The bid agents must have been clearing the tunnels and flushed this guy out of its hiding place. That would explain its injuries. It escaped the bid agents and somehow made it here. There are people in the car, the teacher guy said. Let's hide in the storeroom. It was the store attendant. She waved at everyone to come to the back of the store. The mom quickly herded her 2 kids to the safe hiding spot. The attendant called for us again, and others followed. It was just me, the teacher guy, and a high school girl still in her uniform who stayed to watch. The teacher had a string of beads in his hand, mumbling a prayer while kneeling by the window. I could tell he was a follower of the Mother Core from the design of the beads. The student was engrossed with recording the scene on her phone. I checked the situation outside. The mutant somehow got hold of the cop, raising him high up the ground by the neck with its 2 uppermost hands. The lower hands, with their immense strength, tore the cop's body apart, a handful of flesh at a time. Ew! Bitter bile touched the back of my tongue. My lunch was coming up. I checked the shelf behind me and grabbed a tray of staplers. I wasn't sure if this could work, but it was the hardest thing I could throw within my reach. My plan was simple. 1. Get the attention of the mutant. 2. Draw it inside this building. 3. Kill it. And lastly, eat it. Add something about dealing with the security cameras somewhere in that to-do list. I'd be hitting 2 birds with 1 stone. I hoped this counted as consuming something as, payment. I guess I could call it that to Spooky Aaron for giving me another face. And I would also close this rule number 4 case with my mutant snake buddy. This wasn't an Adumbry, but it wasn't normal either. If it didn't count, then at least I'd know I should only hunt Adumbry. It's just so nice when everything falls into place. Hey! Let's help them. I yelled. The student stared at me like I was crazy and then ignored me. The teacher was still focused on praying. We can still help the people in the car, I insisted. Probably. The car was already compacted to half its size, and there was no more screaming inside. We should try to help. What do I do with this? The confused student said, holding up the staplers I shoved to her hands. Stop that with your phone and throw. I pulled the teacher up and shook him out from his fervent prayer. You too, get these and throw. I opened the sliding glass windows and lobbed the staplers at the mutant, aiming at its body for higher chances of hitting. Don't kill them. I yelled at the mutant. We have to distract it so it would release the car. Let them go, the teacher shouted with me. The girl had confusion all over her face, but she decided to copy me too and threw the staplers to get the monster's attention. Both of them weren't thinking straight, shocked by the situation. The staplers they threw, the pitiful few that hit their mark, harmlessly bounced off the snake's back. Leave those people alone. I used my real strength. My staplers broke into pieces upon impact, but the mutant was still busy dismantling the cop. Shit, I ran out. Wait here, guys. I ran to another shelf and got a few study lamps. Here. Continue throwing, I said, sliding them to their feet. I'll get something bigger. I hurried to the display of models of the Earth and other planets near the stairs and grabbed the biggest one I could find. Is it still there? I asked them, returning by their side with the huge globe. It's leaving, the guy said. He raised the lamp but didn't have the opportunity to throw it. The snake had dropped the barely recognizable skeleton of the cop, stripped of its flesh, and slithered away. "We weren't able to save them," he said mournfully. Blood oozed from the crumpled car. "This is insane." The girl had her camera up again, her hands shaking, but her voice was excited. "An actual Adumbree. And dead people too." "Don't record the dead," the teacher said, his voice wavering in contrast to the girl's. "Actually, I didn't know if he was really a teacher." "That's disrespectful. My classmates aren't going to believe this." The street was clear, only the dead remained. I sat on the windowsill and leaned my upper body out the window. I had the globe in one hand, my other hand hanging onto the ledge. "We can't let it get away." "Wah. What are you doing?" "I'm going to get its attention." The girl said, "I don't think it's a good idea." "Shut up, I'm trying to concentrate." "Don't do that." The teacher tried to pull me back in, everything clicking in his head. "Hey!" I yelled at the mutant. "Hey! This way!" I threw the globe as hard as I could at the back of its head. There was distinctive bonk as the globe bounced on top of the mutant. It was a pretty solid and well-made globe, not those cheap, hollow ones. The mutant stopped but didn't turn around. "Another globe then." "Wait," the guy began to say as I left them. I heard the girl ask him, "What should we do now?" I sprinted back to the planet models display. Only smaller ones left. Could I carry 2 of them? I put one under each of my arms. There were office chairs too. How about though crash? Mutant Snake Buddy was here. It smashed through the glass windows and forced its body through the opening, crumbling the brick wall. It knocked over shelves as the girl screamed. Rulers, protractors, pencils, piles of papers, all kinds of school supplies exploded along with splinters of wood. The mutant pushed back the shelves that fell over it. It raised the upper third of its body. The head of the teacher guy was in between the mutant's jaw, its human mouth stretched to accommodate the size of its prey like a snake's could. The guy was trying to free himself, punching the head of the mutant to no effect. I turned my attention to the camera at the corner of the ceiling. I dropped the globes. "Help!" The high schooler was pinned under one of the toppled shelves. The mutant, irritated by the punching of the teacher guy, thrashed beside her. It flung the body violently in every direction while clamping on his head. Yep, that guy was done for. "Help me, please." "It hurts," the girl pleaded. "Get me out of here." "What do I do? Should I tell her to shut up?" The mutant was going to spot her. I stared at my hand. Why am I hesitating to summon the mask? The teacher guy's body flew overhead. Just the body. The head was still in the mutant's mouth. I dove for the girl. Kneeling in front of her, I grasped her hands and pulled with all my might. The mutant whipped its tail. I braced for impact. The mutant wasn't aiming for me. Its tail smashed through the shelf on top of the girl. She screamed. I pulled her free. Yes. I celebrated as I dragged her to safe. Shit. I was pulling her. But only her upper body. Her lower torso and legs were splattered all over the mutant's tail, the walls, the floor, the ceiling. I held the girl's hands, her lifeless eyes looking up at me. A shadow fell over me. I gazed up and locked eyes with the snake mutant. I slowly moved. My right hand was over my face, ready to summon the Blanchette face at a moment's notice. I wasn't sure what the mutant was thinking. It loomed over me but made no move to attack. I might be imagining it, but its bloodshot eyes seemed perplexed. Its mouth, lined with jagged teeth with bits of flesh on them, gaped open stupidly. 1 second. 2. Should I transform? 3. 4. At 5, I'll transform. Scree, it shrieked and slithered out of the opening it made earlier as quickly as it could. It left? Just like that? What now? I lowered my right hand and surveyed the damage. My left was still holding the hand of the dead girl. I didn't dare move my eyes down her body or I might really vomit. I could see hints of her entrails spilling out. I pulled her and laid her head on my lap. It was becoming my favorite move to be caring. Sorry, I mumbled awkwardly. I truly didn't expect them to die. I did my best to save you. I guess I could have done better. Better luck next time. Oh, wait. There's no next time. Sorry about that. I was still wondering why I didn't put on the face immediately, much less summon it. The mutant had the strength to kill me if I didn't use my power. The security camera? I could just destroy the recording afterward. I stared at the crystals on my palm. Was it because? No. What about the two who died? Simple. They were in the wrong place at the wrong time. No need for a big drama over them. Still, I was genuinely sorry I wasn't able to save them. I didn't intend for them to die. Although, whether they lived or died wouldn't matter much to me in the end. And it was their fault they stayed to watch. I shook my head. I better move on. The deaths of the teacher guy and the high school girl would be in vain if I didn't get to eat the snake mutant. Yes. That would be the best form of apology to these two. Happy with the resolution I reached, I got out of the building and went looking for the mutant. Snake buddy, you who? Where are you? It was easy to find where my one and only mutant pal went off to, just follow the screams of people. I sprinted down 17th Street way faster than my normal self should be able to, making a beeline to the sounds of commotion. Screeching tires pierced my ears. I reached the corner of 17th and Serenade Streets just in time to see a police car crash into the mutant, pinning it against the wall of the Serenade Bazaar. I didn't know what possessed the cops to do this. I was sure this wasn't a tactic in the police manual when dealing with Asunder. Were they really pissed that several of their fellow police officers died last Saturday? But they did stop the snake mutant momentarily. Good job. Angrily punching the hood of the car with its many human hands, the mutant scrunched metal like it was a piece of cardboard. The police car squealed as the driver floored it, trying to keep the mutant in place. His partner alighted from the passenger's side and aimed a shotgun at the mutant's face. Bang! Its head flung back from the force of the shot, bouncing off the wall. Bits of mutant flesh and flecks of greenish blood flew in the air like confetti. Bang! Bang! The cop didn't miss his shots. Were they actually going to succeed in killing it? The people cheered. Yeah, many people were watching like idiots. La Esperanza hadn't experienced an incident where an actual Asunder went on a rampage in broad daylight, so this was a novel spectacle. I spotted the TV5 news reporter, the one interviewing the protesters earlier, hiding with her partner cameraman behind a parked van on the other side of the street of the bazaar. When they saw the mutant apparently dying, they crossed the street and ran to the building to get a closer view, sneaking behind a thick column. The Serenade Bazaar, a cross between a modern bazaar and a mall, had huge Romanesque concrete columns propping up a heavy overhanging roof at its entrance. As for me, I went to take over their previous hiding spot and carefully peered from behind the van. The mutant grabbed the front end of the police car and flipped it. Okay, it's not dying. But its face was a mess. I couldn't even tell that it had a human head. It slammed the overturned police cruiser with its tail for good measure just as the cop inside tried to escape through the driver's window. The shotgun-wielding cop switched to his pistol and continued shooting, hoping to divert the mutant's attention. He got his wish as the snake mutant turned to him. Its face had already healed from its heavy injuries. Huh? Was that its face earlier? The cop rolled across the ground, evading the thrashing tail of the mutant. It chased after the cop, but stopped mid-slither, shrieking in pain. Something burst out of its back but quickly disappeared. It was something long with a pointed tip. The cop, along with the reporter and cameraman, continued running, fearful the mutant was still behind them. It wasn't. Instead, it entered Serenade Bazaar, breaking through the automated glass doors before they could fully open. No more hesitation this time. I summoned the Blanchette face while crouching behind the van, careful not to let anyone see me. I took a deep breath. Let's do this. I instantly felt a surge of power as I placed it on my face. I flexed the muscles of my body, including my favorite jaw muscles. This was awesome. I would grin in excitement if I still had a normal mouth, but the best I could manage was grimace with my fangs. I had no intention of being a hero. If I did, I would have transformed way earlier, but anyone I inadvertently saved should be eternally grateful to me and worship me as a hero. I was about to go out of my hiding spot and run to the Serenade Bazaar's entrance when I realized there was a high chance the crowd of onlookers would record me with their phones. This place has a side entrance, right? I visited this bazaar a couple of times before when I was looking for various brands of tea. I returned to 17th Street and hurried along the side of the building. There. A huge mess. Which was good for me. In their panic, they didn't notice the strange woman in a cosplay-looking getup with a fanged mask crowd surfing through them. I wanted to growl in frustration because they kept pushing me back, but I kept myself in control. Eventually, I was able to extract myself from the horde without throwing anyone in the air in a fit of rage. The building had 3 floors full of stores with skylight roof-covered corridors traversing it in a grid-like pattern. This way, shoppers could see the stores on the upper levels from the ground floor. Ample sunlight filtered in for the lush plants. It would be more accurate to describe it as a small town of 3-story shops connected by bridges under one huge transparent roof. I went up to the 2nd floor and headed to the front part of the building hoping to find the trail of the mutant. Luckily, I spotted the reporter across the circular atrium lobby with her ever-trusty camera guy. She seemed to know where to go. Bridge. Where was the bridge to get to the other side? Damn it. I descended back to the ground floor, ran across the lobby, then went back up the 2nd floor to look for them. Help, a despairing plea echoed in the uncomfortable silence of the usually bustling marketplace. The snake mutant was beside the fountain at the center of the garden. It had captured a couple of people, its body wrapped around them, slowly squeezing. Another body was beneath the end of its tail, squished flat. A woman covered in blood was trying to hide behind a lush fern at the edge of the garden. Please help us, cried the people constricted by the mutant, struggling to breathe. It didn't stop tightening the coil. I snarled in disgust. That wasn't a good sight. Like squeezing peas out of a pod. Except the pod was a human body and the peas were blood, bones, and guts. As I instinctively turned away, I spotted the TV5 people. I bent down and hid behind the floor railings, not a particularly good hiding spot. They were a floor above me on the other side of the garden. I could cross the bridge to get to their side. Should I go over there and destroy their camera before going down to fight the mutant? I was sure this place had security cameras which already captured me running around. But those were blurry, shitty footage. It was another thing to be broadcasted on the news. I'd rather not want that, thank you very much. My heart pounded in anticipation. This was the first time I used my power since the fight at the underground arena. Would I be able to control myself now? I swear I can stop myself from eating too much, just limit it to the snake mutant. Also, I should finish before more police and bid agents arrived. I might not be able to control myself if reinforcements kept coming. And if it came to that, I'd have no choice but to keep on eating them to survive. I wanted to avoid killing normal humans if possible. I wasn't a monster. Okay, I am. But I was still a human in my head. Stop that. A cop? A bid agent? Were they already here? No, it was a security guard of the Serenade Bazaar based on his uniform. Seriously? I almost felt sorry for the guy that I considered jumping in now before he stupidly got himself killed. Yet, a part of me wanted to see this one play out. "Stop," the guard yelled again. He had a taser in his hand. The mutant didn't heed his call. No surprises there. It glided to the woman by the ferns. The woman made no attempts to escape. Perhaps injured, perhaps frozen by fear. Showing an amazing display of courage, the guard went up behind the snake mutant and shot the back of its head with his taser. I almost clapped my clawed hands to cheer for him. A normal human hit by a taser would have seized up and hit the floor, convulsing. A normal Adumbry hit by a powerful electroshock weapon like a Skitters would also end up convulsing, barely able to control their powers like what happened to Rob. An Adumbry, or a mutant, in this case, hit by a normal taser would do nothing. If it connected. The prong thingies of the taser just bounced off the scales of the mutant. It raised its tail. Folks, we all know what's coming next. A pancaked security guard. But the tail didn't slam down on the poor guard going way above and beyond his pay grade. A pole-like object erupted out of the mutant's tail and embedded itself to the floor, nailing the tail to the ground. My eyes widened. What was that? A spear? I looked around to check. No one threw a spear or anything. On the third floor, the TV5 crew didn't seem to notice what had happened. Where could it have come from? Hold on, the spear didn't skewer the tail. It came out of one side of the tail, the side towards me. The news people couldn't see it from their side. As the mutant tried to free itself, I saw there was no entry point on the other side of the tail, the other half of the spear was nowhere to be seen. Was it the same thing I saw earlier? Here, I didn't spot anyone, or anything, that could have been the source of the spear. I crouched lower and started to crawl towards a post to better hide myself. There must be an Adumbry somewhere around here. Maybe someone from the 2MS organization. However, why would an Adumbry want to kill this mutant? To cover their tracks. What if this wasn't an Adumbry? What if it was a Corbring? The snake mutant grabbed the spear with its many hands and attempted to pull it out. It should have been easy for it to dislodge given its strength, but it couldn't uproot it from the ground. Unsure of how to free itself, it lunged at the guard who was still in striking distance. The spear went back into its tail, freeing it, but the mutant suddenly stopped, shrieking in pain. At first, I didn't understand what happened. After I changed my position to get a better view, I realized that the hocus-pocus spear emerged beneath it, out of its belly, as if someone speared it from above, but only the half of the spear that passed through the mutant's body was visible. Yet again, it was stuck in place, held by the spear. Its arms, inches from grabbing the guard. Amazed at his luck, the guard went around the monster and rushed to the aid of the survivor by the ferns. What a swell guy. The mutant pushed on the floor, struggling to free itself. The spear held firm. It pounded on the floor in anger, cracking the tiles. Suddenly, it was free again. It was able to move several feet as the spear went back in its body, only to emerge out the bottom of its jaw. I didn't need X-ray vision powers to know part of the spear was inside its head. Game over. That thing's gotta be dead. Its brain was done for. The spear disappeared. It didn't recede into the mutant's body as it previously did. It simply vanished. The monster fell to the ground. Motionless. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed the pair from TV5 had left their spot. They were probably going down to get a closer look at the dead mutant. I should probably make my escape now to avoid the same fate as my snake mutant buddy. No way I could fight whatever this was that killed it. As I turned to leave, an angry bellow echoed. The mutant was back up again. It raised the upper half of its body to scout for danger, seeking its attacker. How did it survive having its brain destroyed? As its head swept in my direction, I got my answer. It had a different face. Either its brain wasn't inside its head, or it had multiple brains. What a dumbass I was to assume monsters would have one brain, or that their brain would be in the same place as a human's. The TV5 reporter emerged on the second floor, having gone down the stairs. The cameraman looked over the floor railings and pointed his camera at the mutant. And then the spear appeared again. It shot through the mutant's flank, towards my side as before. It got absorbed back into its body and immediately emerged out of another place but still towards me. It kept on repeating this like a grim whack-a-mole, the spear being the mole. Brownish-green blood from the mutant coated the tiles. The mutant dragged itself across the floor with its arms as the spears continued to go in and out of its body, slowly killing it. My prey. I assumed whoever was doing this was looking for the brain inside the mutant's body. Wait a minute, the camera. When I first saw the spear, it was outside Serenade Bazaar. That time, the camera guy came nearer for a better shot. The spear appeared on the side not facing the camera. Then it vanished, instead of just going back in the mutant's body when the cameraman ran away. Now, the spear appeared on my side, the side opposite the camera. It disappeared when the cameraman went down from the third floor. It reappeared when he pointed the camera once again at the mutant. Was someone spearing my snake buddy through the camera? I made a dash to the bridge that to the other side of the garden, keeping my head below the floor railings. I had to destroy the camera before my monster pal died. The reporter and the cameraman didn't notice me coming over. They were perplexed at what was happening to the mutant, keeping the camera trained on it. "Don't point that thing at me," I prayed as I made a mad dash toward them. At the last moment, perhaps hearing my frantic footsteps, the cameraman turned to me. Focused on the line of sight of the camera, it was as if the entire world slowed down. I bent low, dove at it with my claws out, and swung wildly. "What the cameraman said as I smashed the camera out of his hands. He fell on his butt. The news reporter screamed at my sudden appearance and threw her microphone at me. I didn't mind them. I jumped over the railings to my snake buddy, to my prey, to my food. "Snake buddy. Don't die before I can eat you. Wee. 1, 2, 3, I counted quickly in my head, stomp. I kicked my legs down, hitting the ground with the hard soles of my boots with as much force as I could muster. Bomb. I knelt, absorbing the impact, feeling the wonderful strain go up my lower body like an electric shock. I leaned forward as my knees bent to stop my body from bouncing back up. The sparkling white floor tiles cracked satisfyingly, my boots sinking about half an inch into the ground. With my light weight, and given I jumped from only the second floor, I most likely wouldn't be able to break the tiles upon landing if I didn't intentionally stomp on them. Of course, there was no need for any of this. But I wanted to make a cool entrance. Because that's the most important thing when you have powers. Would have been a lot cooler if a crater formed when I landed, kicking up dust to envelope me before the dramatic reveal. Broken tiles were enough for now. This was the second time I jumped down from a high place. The first was when I threw myself into the arena of the Eve Club. I'd never get tired of this exhilarating feeling. Maybe I should try jumping from a way higher place next time. The mutant twisted its body in my direction, quickly turning back around to flee when it saw me. Did it remember who I was? But it only met my giant werewolf form in the arena. My mutant pal was gravely injured, its insides a mess. It couldn't slither properly. Instead, it dragged its long body, its numerous human-like hands with inhuman strength digging into the floor to pull its heavy weight forward, with the tip of its tail kicking back. It left a trail of its sickly-colored blood and bits of its entrails, moving more like a centipede now than a snake. I howled, pointing my snout to the ceiling. Holding the single, piercing note, I exhausted the air in my lungs. The howl echoed throughout the nearly empty building. A howl to start the hunt. Actually, I wasn't sure if wolves howled before hunting their prey. Maybe to signal each other. But there was no one here for me to signal. Wait. I knew wolves also howled to warn enemies in their territory to stay away. That was close enough for me. Bottom line, I just enjoyed howling. Feeling my powerful vocal cords vibrating, the air rushing through my throat. I got down to all fours and charged after the mutant. It entered Cotton Pals, a store at one corner of the garden selling stuffed toys, seeking a place to hide. It broke part of the display window to get inside. After gathering speed, I leaped in after the mutant, making sure to smash through the other unbroken window instead of entering through the opening it made. Broken glass couldn't scratch my skin. It was so much fun being this powerful. My body banged into a shelf, knocking it down and scattering cute rainbow corgis everywhere. With my momentum, I continued rolling into the arms of a giant bear plush bigger than me. Another shelf fell as I tried to stand, drowning me in a flood of chubby stuffed seals. I snarled in irritation, snapping at everything, ripping the toy animals with my teeth. I swung my claws madly, tearing apart the huge bear, the shelves, and all the other plushies. Wood, cotton, wool, whatever crap they stuffed these toys with, all of that flew in the air as I tried to destroy everything I could reach with reckless glee. This was way better than being a kid in a ball pit. I assumed everyone pretended to be a wild animal at least once when they were kids, imagining they had long fangs and sharp claws. I giggled while shredding the fruit and vegetable plushies. Did anyone ever buy one of these stuffed tomato toys? Why am I here again? A tail as thick as a tree trunk parted the clouds of fluff and caught my midsection. It knocked the wind out of me and hurled me to the wall. The drywall easily gave way. I tumbled into the store next door. I coughed blood, scrambling to my feet. This time, display cases of sneakers fell on me. After getting hit by the mutant came the sensation I was waiting for. Not the pain that radiated from my bruised abdomen. Not the possible broken rib or two. Bloodthirst. Feral rage bubbling beneath my consciousness, waiting for me to give in to its temptation. I gnashed my growing fangs as my jaws itched to clamp down on flesh. My claws extended. Power, more power. Power to rip apart those that hurt me. Power to hunt my prey and tear it to pieces. So good. I heard a crash. Through the me-shaped hole on the wall, I saw a portion of the mutant's tail disappear from view going to the right. It went to the other neighbor of the plushie store. Rage welled up more and more. My prey. I was enthralled by this sensation. Addicted to it. It wasn't the power that I wanted to feel the most. It was the rage. I couldn't feel this level of fury when I was pretty little Aaron, even when I tried my best to get angry. Catharsis through animalistic rage resulted in a different kind of happiness. I craved this level of emotion just for the sake of feeling something exotic. And I needed to control this craving. Now. I balled up my fist, my claws digging into my palm. Get a hold of yourself. I punched the side of my face. The world turned hazy for a second, and I tasted my blood. I shook my head to get back into focus. Okay, that wasn't the brightest of my ideas, but it knocked some sanity back into me. I didn't go back into the plushie store. My plan was to go right and break through the wall at the back of the sneakers store. Next, I'd go left and smash into the store where Snake Mutant Buddy should be. That was if it hadn't already gone away. This was way slower, but I hoped destroying walls and shelves would calm me down. I broke into a run, coiled my powerful legs muscles, and dove at the wall. Please don't be a concrete wall, I fervently prayed as I soared across the air. Please just be weak plasterboard. Crash. I got through to the other side. Cymbals clanged, strings twanged, my left foot got stuck inside a snare drum. I narrowly avoided a bunch of ukuleles hanging from the ceiling dropping on me. I extracted myself from the musical instruments and faced left. I found that I didn't need to break through another wall. The music store was big, taking up the space usually meant for two stores, both sides of the store opened to the corridors on the left and right side. I spotted the snake mutant out on the left corridor, the sunlight pouring through the transparent roof high above bathed its body, making its green scales glint like emerald. It raised its body with its arms flailing, trying to make itself look bigger. It yelled a challenge, screak. Was it saying it was going to take me on? A piano was beside me. Very tempting. Should I? I promise this is the last time for shenanigans. I squatted deep and buried my claws into the bottom wood panels of the piano. Can I lift this? Never say never. It was heavy, but not as heavy as I thought. Keep your core tight, I reminded myself. Don't slouch. Lift with the knees and not the back. A broken back was the last thing I wanted, even if I could regenerate it. Heave. I roared as I lifted upwards. And it didn't go up above me like I expected. Idiot. So that was why it didn't feel as heavy as I expected. I wasn't lifting it correctly. I gathered more speed. Bomb. I collided with the mutant. Or rather, it caught the piano. Jrrr. I couldn't move another inch forward. There was no way I could budge the mutant. It was heavier than me and we had about the same strength. If it wasn't injured, it would surely be stronger. I gritted my teeth as it started to push back. My soles squeaked on the tiles. I couldn't get traction. Wood creaked. Then splintered. The piano was breaking between the two of us, sandwiching it. Fine. I lost the pushing match. I don't care about it anyway, I thought pettily. I rolled to the side as it pushed the broken piano away. I stabbed its flank with my claws. Monster blood burst out like I was popping a gigantic zit. It wasn't as durable as the late Mr. Ogre. I reached deep into its body, scrambling everything I could as if my claws were a kitchen mixer. If that mysterious spear user thought this was the way to kill it, then I was going to try it too. The mutant cried in pain. It punched me. It scratched me. It tried to pull me away. With each of its attacks, I grew angrier. Red clouded my vision. I shivered with rage. I snapped at everything, ripping its hands and arms that my jaws could catch. Blood from the stumps of its limbs showered my face and chest. I didn't care. I kept on chewing its flesh while my claws remained buried inside it. It flailed, trying to throw me away. I opened my mouth wide and chomped on its body to hang on. My teeth met its scales, breaking them like they were potato chips. Even as it rampaged from store to store, slamming me against various merchandise, the wall, the floor, even the ceiling, it couldn't get rid of me. I was like the most determined leech in the world. I only grew stronger as I devoured it while it kept on hurting me. Time to see what's really inside of you. With my claws, I widened its wounds, then pulled back the scales, the skin, the flesh. And found heads inside its body. Hairless human heads. Male, female, old, young, even a small child's head. All connected with thick veins that almost looked like intestines pumping the green liquid into and out of them. Its body was packed with heads and tentacles. The heads slid against each other in a mucus-like substance. They reminded me of tapioca pearls in syrup. The disgusting version of that 1,000 times more disgusting than the most disgusting shit I'd ever seen. Besides the heads that had huge holes poked through them, the handiwork of Mr. Spear, and the heads I myself destroyed, there were plenty more that were unharmed. Those pulsated and twitched. One of them turned to me and opened its eyes. Feeling my hold weakening from the shock, the snake mutant grabbed me with its remaining arms and pulled me off. I was barely processing the revolting sight of its innards when I found myself up in the air. Its massive tail came to meet my face. Wham! Crash! I was thrown into yet another store. I roared as I cleared the stuff that fell on me. The pain I felt was negligible, like I was just thrown in my judo class back in college. After consuming a lot of my mutant pal's flesh and bones, on top of getting hurt many times, my power was already kicking in. Hints of fur grew from the back of my hand. Claws pierced through my boots. My snout elongated. I was becoming more and more muscular. This was the stage I had to be careful. I shouldn't get pushed to fully transform into my giant wolf form. Peace. Calmness. Control. A thick book fell on my head. I growled. There goes my inner peace. I caught the title of the book in the corner of my eye and it made me stop. How to Control the Adumbri in You. A tiny sound made me turn my head. A woman hid behind the cabinet full of jars of different colored liquids that survived my meteoric landing. Anti-Adumbri aromatherapy, said the label of the cabinet. I should remember to visit this store after this was all over, I thought sarcastically. The woman had pale skin, even paler than mine. I didn't think it was because she was afraid of me, she just naturally looked like a vampire. She had a defiant expression on her face peering through the strands of her jet-black hair. She had various piercings on her lips and ears with designs that looked like symbols related to Corbring cults. Don't come close, she bravely said, holding out a branding iron like those for cattle but with a mystic symbol as the brand. Don't make me use this on you. I have no idea what's that supposed to be. A curious thought crossed my mind. What if I drew the mutant over here? I mean, it wouldn't be my fault if the mutant went after her. Right? Wink. Wink. Nudge. Nudge. Would be fun to see how she would try to survive. Cut it out. I scolded myself. That was enough for today. I didn't have time to waste on this. I didn't even know how to kill my mutant pal with its many heads. Plus, this was already towing the line of bothering people. Begone, Adumbri, she said, waving the piece of iron. Begone from this realm. Whatever, weird lady. I went out of the store. A buzzing sound. A white and black cylindrical object flew overhead. Reinforcing my assessment of the situation that I was running out of time, police drones had entered the building. Flee. Or go after the mutant. The answer was obvious. My mother taught me to always finish my meal. This one is for you, Mom. It stung. Something was pelting me with hot things. Many, many painful small things. I ignored it. Continued eating. Hey. My skin hurt. But not so much. More irritating than painful, really. I healed quickly, then the pain was gone. But it came back right after because that weird thing on many wheels wouldn't stop hitting me. It itched. I wanted to scratch my body, but I was too busy eating. Bothering me while I ate. Annoying. What was it? Hey. Needed to eat faster. I munched on the bones, chewed the rubbery flesh. Soft pudding gushed out from the cracks of the skulls. There was something with this creamy food. I didn't know what it was, but it had a tingly feeling on my tongue. I wanted it. I couldn't explain why, but I just wanted it. I grabbed more of these bloody, circular things with faces, pulling them from pulsating tentacles. They twitched, they tried to speak, their mouths moved but no sound came out because they didn't have any throats, some sobbed, a couple tried to bite my fingers. I paid them no mind, shoving each of them into my expectant, salivating maw. Hey, errand. That thing that was hitting me, it wasn't stopping. Now, another one came, moving towards me on caterpillar treads. What was a caterpillar? Those rolling things below it were also on tanks, right? A tank? What was a tank? Wasn't a tank supposed to be big? This new thing was smaller than me. Many of these annoying things. Some in the sky, flying, some in the ground, hitting me. This very, very small tank looked different from the other things hitting me. But like the others, it also pointed something at me. Boom! A flash of white. Searing heat. A massive force threw me some distance. I slammed into a thick pillar. Slabs broke off, big and small, falling on me. Dust slowly floated down, settling on my exposed, bloody flesh. I growled as I gripped the corner of the square column, pulling myself up. My wounds were superficial, my body quickly regenerated. Skin grew back, covering newly formed muscles. A thick carpet of crimson fur followed. I growled even deeper as a new wave of rage threatened to come crashing down on my consciousness. But something was fighting it back, an anchor at the back of my mind. The anger was less pronounced. Muted. These things couldn't kill me, why bother? I should go back to eating. Then I found that those things were destroying my food. The round objects with faces were getting destroyed by the very, very small tank, making them explode. The floor shook with the explosions. The other things were helping out, shooting my snacks with the endless burning pebbles they spouted. I snarled and dropped on my front legs, the muscles of my hind legs pumped and ready to kick back to begin the charge. I was going to eat all of these damn things. The tiny voice at the back of my head was right. I destroyed one of those flying things earlier by throwing one of my round snacks with a face at it, the rest flew higher so I couldn't easily knock them out of the air. I also smashed one of the things on wheels. I tried eating them, but I found out these things bothering me were inedible. I munched and munched on them and they were very hard and tasted bad. They weren't food even if they were hurting me. I was just going to destroy them. I charged at the very small tank that sent me flying, caught it with my claws before it could shoot, and buried my fangs into its thick armor. Both of us rolled on the floor. It whirred and spurted, its treads rolling uselessly in the air. We came to a stop. I turned it over and roared as I dismantled it. Pain shot up in my upper right back. Just a minuscule prick. I turned and looked up. There was a new flying thing, it looked different from the other flying things already here. It shot something at my back with a long string connected to it. Other flying things that looked similar to it showed up, forming a loose circle high above me. Another one shot me. With my fast reflexes and predator eyes specialized in tracking movement, I evaded its shot and caught it. Two long and sharp needles with strings connected to the floating weird thing. Bzzrttt. My body shuddered. My back muscles spasmed. More of those needles pierced my body. They weren't able to penetrate deep, some bounced off, but most of them stayed rooted in my flesh. Bzzrttt. I snarled as I tried to keep standing. I wanted to thrash, wildly shred anything around me, but I couldn't. I fell on my knees. The flying things were doing something to me. These needles, the strings. They were humming, clicking. My muscles seized up and wouldn't listen to me. I couldn't think. The inevitable rage that followed each time I was injured kept me conscious. Erend, that was me. Erend. I'm Erend. I felt like I crawled out from the murky abyss that was the feral instincts of my beast form. As if from a deep slumber due to staying up all night binge-watching movies, I awakened after what felt like 12 hours of sleep. The tiny, conscious part of me that endured, tucked away in the fringes of the beast's mind, was coming to the fore, fighting for more control. But I was still convulsing from the electric charges passing through my body. I willed my body to move, grabbing the needles embedded in my flesh and yanking out all of them. I pulled the strings, tugging the drones towards me to make them crash. But the drones cut off their cords and flew higher. With a running jump, I tried to reach for one. My claws snagged its bottom plating, and I dragged it down to the ground, smashing it with a stomp of my foot. The drones with mounted guns and rockets fired at me. They were finished with their job of destroying the remaining heads the snake mutant carried inside it. My mutant pal's body was torn to open from the bottom of its neck, if it could be called a neck, down the length of its body, nearly to the tip of its tail. My fault for opening it like a duffel bag to get its juicy insides. I dashed towards the wall. One of the bullets clipped my calf. I stumbled a bit and wasn't able to jump as high as I wanted, but I nearly reached the second floor. I hung on with my claws and pulled myself over the floor railings. Some of the bullets hit me, but the guns of the police drones didn't have the firepower of a skitter's gun. It might be a war crime to use a skitter on a normal human. I ran without thinking about my destination. First order of business, get away from here. I weaved through stores, trying to shake off the drones. Some of them were able to keep up with me. At least the drones with the machine guns and rockets were stuck on the first floor. They only had wheels and caterpillar treads. They didn't have the sophisticated bid technology the skitters had with their spider-like legs that could navigate any terrain. I seriously doubted the police drones could use the elevator. Second agenda, return to my base form, my Blanchette body. I was partially transformed, parts of my body covered in fur, my hoodie melded with my skin and turned into a fierce mane of blood-red hair. My snout had elongated, my mouth grew large enough to fit a whole human head inside. Arms and legs lengthened and became extremely muscular. Turn back to normal. Normal as in my Blanchette form, which wasn't normal at all, I suppose. I didn't exactly know how to reverse my transformation, but I just focused in my mind as I ran. If I met cops in this state, I might not be able to stop myself from eating them if they shot me, which they probably would do if they saw me. It'd be a downward spiral from there. I'd just keep eating cops as they came, and then finally complete my transformation. If that happened, I wasn't sure I'd get lucky again, that something would jolt my mind back to rationality. And I couldn't risk losing control in the middle of the city. The BID and National Guard were here, well, not exactly here, they were probably at the crater or searching the tunnels below the city. But they were surely on their way here. My fur slowly receded into my skin. I was getting smaller. In my vision, I could also see my snout becoming shorter. Phew. I was getting the hang of this. Just needed more practice. Why did I lose control anyway? It was just one opponent. Mr. Snake wasn't a threat to me, it didn't have the strength to hurt me enough to trigger a full transformation. Which was why I didn't have any reservations about fighting it, because I was sure I'd be able to control myself. Was it the heads? When I ate the heads? My memories of that point were still hazy. Third on my to-do list, escape. Where? Where should I go? I hid inside a furniture store. Not exactly hide, because the drones knew where I was. But they didn't try to get inside the store. With some breathing space, I had a teensy-weensy bit of time to think. Should I go to the front of the building? I peered at the corridor to check what shops were around my location, trying to reorient myself with my memory of the layout of this place. I was too far away from the entrance, and I'd have to go through the rest of the drones to get there. Since the drones came from the front of the building, tons of cops were already waiting for me to come out. If they had the anti-Adumbry drones, then some of the city's combat exoskeleton units would also be there. I'd be serving myself on a silver platter to them. I wondered why they hadn't stormed the Serenade Bazaar to attack me. At first, the drones they sent in only attacked me. Then they switched to the heads. I was just taking a stab in the dark here, but I think the BID took over command and told the police to prioritize destroying the heads. The BID might have found traces of the peculiar cocoon that formed in the arena beneath the Eve Club. I wasn't sure what it was, but it was obviously dangerous, as it forced their agents to overload their Greaves reactors to destroy it at the expense of the lives of dozens of people above ground. I recalled that weird cocoon was collecting heads. They'd be on the lookout for something like that. Seeing the number of heads I was consuming, I surmised the BID was concerned I was going to turn into a dangerous cocoon as well, and told the cops to chill out unless they wanted to add their heads to the pile. That was the only explanation I could think of why this place wasn't swarming with police comexos. Whatever the real reason was, I had the space to escape now. I exited the furniture store and headed to the side entrance. Circular shadows on the floor told me that the drones were high above, keeping up with me. I retraced my path back to the entrance of the bazaar that opened to 17th Street, but as I approached it, I could hear police sirens in that direction. Okay, that was the wrong place to go to. I continued running, hoping the back entrance of the store that led to the huge parking lot along Whiskers Drive might be my ticket to freedom. From the semicircular balcony at the end of the second floor, I jumped down to the smallish garden atrium right in front of the Whiskers Drive entrance. A few meters away from the glass doors, the police had set up a barricade with their cars. I also saw a huge armored truck unloading policemen wearing combat exoskeletons bristling with heavy weaponry. For a couple of seconds, we all stared at each other, the cops behind their cruisers, the ComExos in front of them, the anti-Adumbry police drones. Shit. I ran back into the building as the police opened fire. I turned left and rolled into the nearest store as the atrium and the lobby leading out of it became a killing zone. The glass windows and doors shattered as I dove underneath a table with bottles of scented body wash on top of it. Endless bullets entered the building like a horde of shoppers on Black Friday. The food carts along the corridor and the other stalls in the lobby were torn to shreds. The tiles were broken, dug up out of the floor by the sheer force of the bullets. Despite my dire situation, I was only mildly panicked. Think quickly. Serenade Street, 17th Street, Whiskey Drive, all of them were a no-go. How about the last side? An office building, wasn't it? There were no doors on that side, so that also wasn't an option. Where else? Down. Or. I crawled to another spot in the store to get a better view of the outside, taking care I wouldn't accidentally expose myself to the line of fire of the cops. There. A tall white column that branched out at its top supported the transparent roof, an architectural depiction of a tree that blended with the environmental motif of this marketplace. My way up. My way out. Detective Jacobin Castan draped his right hand out the window of Lieutenant Hall's two-seater coupe with a cigarette stick between his fingers. "LT, you sure you're okay with me smoking?" He lightly tapped the tip of his cigarette and watched as the wind carried the ashes away. "Nice ride you got here. Would be sad if the smell of smoke sticks everywhere. You look like you need it." Lieutenant Hall drummed on the wheel waiting for the traffic light to turn from red to green. "How many years has it been?" "Since when?" "Since you last smoked." "4 years. Or is it 5? "About half a year after my fiancée, Charmaine, called off our planned wedding and left me, so 5. After that, I decided to clean up my act and do my best to get the gold badge." He placed the cigarette between his lips and inhaled. "Didn't you see that picture of me when I was on patrol? The picture Lynette passed around a couple of months ago? I didn't get to see it. I do recall Mulberry and Adams nearly pissed their pants laughing at it. I got way out of shape when Charmaine went with that guy. Let myself go. Very different from the toned, hunky, piece of ass I am right now." Lieutenant Hall let out an amused grunt. "Lost weight, stopped drinking. I even went to church for a couple of years, all kinds of churches." Castan paused as a helicopter passed over them. He stuck his head out of the window to check its markings. "Bid," he said. Lieutenant Hall only grunted again in response, expressing his disinterest. Castan wondered what the bid agent, that guy named Matt, and Lieutenant Hall talked about last Saturday. He knew it was connected with the raid at the Eve Club that night and all the hell that followed after. Was that Matt person still alive? However, he sensed this wasn't the time for that conversation. He continued with the safe topic of his life. "I still do drink sometimes. Only during occasions. Church. Not anymore." "Well, I hope this doesn't become a habit of yours," Lieutenant Hall said. "Going to church?" That made Lieutenant Hall crack a smile. "This smoking. You know my stance on that. But I do understand the stressful situation. It's not that LT. I'm fine. Not fine physically. He paused for another smoke. It also gave him time to push down the memories of the collapsing building that was nearly his grave. But mentally I'm fine. I don't have PTSD, or I think I don't. I have to be honest, I did wake up in the middle of the night at the hospital, sweating, thinking the world was caving in on me again. That was only one time. Nothing since then. Don't be too hard on yourself. I'm fine, he repeated. Why are you smoking then? I didn't smoke again because of the stress of what happened. It's more to, symbolize a restart of life. Restart? I know this sounds cheesy, but when I smoked my last stick 5 years ago, I promised myself that after I finished, it'll be the start of my new life. Castan held up the cigarette he was currently smoking. And after this, it will, again, be another start of my new life. I see, Lieutenant Hall said. It's not even me deciding this. Fate decided I get to live. He took another huff, held the smoke in his mouth, and exhaled through his nose. I already threw away the rest of the pack. Just this one for me. And I'm done again. That's good, Lieutenant Hall repeated as if on autopilot. Both of them stayed silent as they cruised through Romeo Drive. There was a moment Castan thought Lieutenant Hall was about to say something, but it just turned into a cough. Everything was quiet again. Only inside the car. The street was busy and noisy as if there was a holiday shopping sale. This road that was usually plagued by heavy traffic on most days, being one of the more famous shopping streets in the city, was impossibly more crowded today. It wasn't even the weekends. Not just here. Castan noticed the city seemed busier, more people than usual were out on the streets. He expected people would stay in their homes if they didn't have anything important to do, but the opposite happened. This was an interesting reaction to the 2-day lockdown the city ordered. There was a certain uneasiness over the city. Going out, he wasn't a psychologist, but Castan surmised this behavior was due to people overcompensating their desire to go back to a sense of normalcy. He could relate to that. There was an uneasiness even in the car. Castan noticed Lieutenant Hall kept on clenching and unclenching his jaws, his cheeks constantly moving. He must have plenty on his mind. The lieutenant was a stoic and brooding person, but a good conversationalist if the situation called for it. He could easily put witnesses and suspects at ease. If they're stressed at the station, he knew what to say to break the tension. He didn't like dead air even if he himself didn't talk much. When he and Castan, went on random investigations on the Mark and Mark brothers off-duty and in secret, of course the lieutenant always had tales to fill the long hours they staked out locations. Deciding it was his duty to start small talk, Castan said, "You didn't have to drive me to work, LT." Lieutenant Hall said, "You're not going to drive with that injury." A smashed arm, Castan said, struggling to lift his left arm encased in a cast, cradled by a sling attached to his shoulder, a couple of ribs and my left femur also broken. I know I'm not going to drive anytime soon. But that's what cabs are for. Just consider this a public service from your friendly, neighborhood police officer. How are you managing? Going down the stairs is a darn chore. The elevator at my apartment still isn't fixed. Getting used to crutches. Castan turned his head to check the crutches he stowed in the back. Needs practice. First time I ever had a foot injury. Not even a sprain when I was a kid. How much did those cost? The crutches? I borrowed those from Lynette. I was going to buy a pair, but her brother has an old pair so she offered them. You know her brother? The military guy. I've seen him. Doctor said I'll be able to walk normally within 4 months. 3, if I respond well to physical therapy. Just stay out of trouble, she said. That's good news. Stay out of trouble. You know you could stay home. I didn't even need a steel bar in my leg, Castan said. He didn't want the conversation to go that way. Lynette already tried to convince him to take some time off. But he wouldn't. His eyes started to water. And it wasn't from the smoke. He flicked the cigarette outside. He sniffed, swallowed his saliva, and blinked his eyes several times to drive away the gathering tears. Doctor said I was also lucky I didn't injure any internal organs even though I have broken ribs. His littering didn't escape Lieutenant Hall's notice. That's an offense with a fine. Can also be community service picking up trash for up to 8 hours. You're also not wearing a seatbelt. Castan. Just this morning, they found Marshall's body. I immediately called his mom to, extend my condolences. I didn't know what to say if she asked me why I survived but her son didn't. Thinking back now, why the hell would she ask me that? But when I called her, I dreaded getting asked that question. Because I was also asking myself that question. And Patel? Patel's still missing. Still missing under all that rubble. Lieutenant Hall placed his hand on Castan's shoulder. Castan jerked up and looked around, confused. The road, he dumbly said, only to realize the lieutenant parked the car beside the curb in the middle of his rant. He was so engrossed he didn't notice. It's good you let it all out, Lieutenant Hall said. To protect and to serve we're all prepared to put our lives on the line. But not like this. Death and injury are occupational hazards. As Marshall would say, a perk of the job. A negative perk. Getting shot while chasing a suspect but not like this. I'm sure the guys at Anti-Adumbrey Unit don't think getting nuked was. You wasted your last cigarette stick. I guess I did. Since you're done with your last cigarette, it's the start of your next life. It's a new start for the entire LEPD. We lost so many of our brave officers. Let us not forget what we're fighting for. Castan wanted to ask Lieutenant Hall what he knew of the operation. They were briefed with the same information that the media was now telling the people. Illegal traders of Adumbrey parts. That wasn't true. This was somehow connected with the Mark and Marcy brothers, and he knew they were doing experiments and also hiding Adumbrey in this city. This must be related to that Matt person. Would LT answer him if he asked? Or was it confidential? Castan, Lieutenant Hall said. He started the car and went back on the road. Sir. You asked why I offered to drive you to work. It's the small things. We need to help each other now more than ever. Castan nodded. Find out the name of that agent from the bureau who was with you. Call his family. Offer help, whatever you can. It'll make you feel better. I will do that. Lieutenant Hall turned left to Maplewood Road instead of continuing to the highway. A small detour, he said in answer to Castan's puzzled expression. Let's go to Danny's. Pastrami to brighten your day, our day. Detective, I'm not sure if this is insensitive to say, mumbled the aging Danny, the owner namesake of the restaurant, behind his white, bushy mustache, but I sure am. Glad to see you alive and kicking, even in your current state. I'm glad I'm alive too, Castan somberly said. Danny wrapped their usual order, pastrami sandwiches piled so high with meat they could barely fit it in their mouths, a hint of mustard, and a side of coleslaw. This is a trying time for the city. Yes, sir, it is. It really is. Yet, those bastards are out there partying after the lockdown, as if there's something to celebrate about. Got lots of orders? Yep. Frantic honking out on the street made them both look outside. That Jeremiah? Danny gave the paper bag with their order to Castan. That doesn't sound good. It sure doesn't. He grabbed their order and rushed back to Lieutenant Hall's car. Right as he opened the door, police chatter filled the air. What's going on? He asked as he got inside. Multiple victims. We have multiple victims. Squad 430 to 3024, 17th Street. Possible Adumbrey. Do not engage as per protocol. 402, we're here. We don't see it. Checking the casualties. 406, we're north of Serenade Bazaar. Witnesses say it's inside. Copy, 406. Do not engage. See you en route, 10 minutes. Need EMS. This is 402 moving on to the corner of Serenade and 17th. Need EMS, officer down. Rescue coming. Lieutenant Hall expertly backed out on the street. He didn't need to tell Castan where they were going. It's an Adumbry. They initially encrypted the frequencies, but someone high must have realized that could mess up the coordination of everyone. Good call, Castan said. And he meant that. They finally decided to drop their stupid cover story in favor of coordination and saving as many people as possible. Even the media listening into police scanners could help save lives. It was not as if this was a manhunt and the suspect might also listen in to evade arrest. Everyone needed to step up and protect this city. We're lucky that the bid is already here. Or unlucky that they needed to be here. Next squad, Block 18th and Serenade, all the way up. 16th too. 521, nearing 16th. Will do. We need to start evacuating people. Crowd forming outside of Serenade Bazaar. Officers were speaking over each other, sometimes not even identifying themselves. There was panic since it had been a long time since the LEPD encountered a manifested Adumbry. The LEPD also lost officers in last Saturday's raid, and most precincts hadn't yet dealt with the chaos that caused. They were nowhere near Serenade Bazaar, they weren't needed there. But both of them were in silent agreement that they should go and help in any way they could. Reports noted only the Adumbry's physical strength and monstrous appearance. There was no mention of paranormal abilities. It also didn't seem to be in control of itself. Dispatch said the initial assessment was an SBM, a spontaneous breach manifestation, possibly level 1 or 2. Castan and Lieutenant Hall tried to make sense of what was happening. From what they could piece together, it showed up somewhere near the edge of the quarantine zone and started to go on a killing spree. They weren't sure how many were the casualties, but there were officers included. And based on the initial reports of the officers on the scene, there were more dead than injured. At the moment, the Adumbry was inside Serenade Bazaar. A perimeter was established. According to dispatch, the combat exoskeleton unit of the LEPD had just arrived on the scene. No word from the bid if they were sending people over. Most of them were inside the quarantine zone, near the middle of the crater of the explosion, doing whatever secret shit they did. The CEU sent in combat drones while waiting for bid communication. Why are they still not sending the heavies in? If the initial categorization was correct, the CEU should be able to handle this no problem. They're wasting time. Calm down. The chatter went dead. Something must have happened for the signal to be locked. After several minutes of anxious silence, it came back on. On the roof, eyes on the roof. A woman. She may need assistance. Holy hell. She jumped to the next building. A second Adumbry. All units, that woman is a confirmed second Adumbry. Both of them looked at each other. What the hell? Castan said. Now there's 2 of them. This is getting worse, Lieutenant Hall said. They listened as the updates kept coming on the movements of the female Adumbry. She leaped from building to building with extreme speed. Hang on, Castan said. Serenity Building 2. Aren't we near there? Lieutenant Hall slowed down. This is Building 4. Castan poked his head out of the window to look at the street signs and names of the buildings. So, it should be next to this. Crash. The roof of the car collapsed on them. Castan, on instinct, opened the door on his side and managed to tumble to the street. He saw Lieutenant Hall's head pressed on the steering wheel by the depressed car roof. There was blood. LT. His broken ribs and leg nearly paralyzed him as he quickly tried to stand without crutches. He dropped back down to the ground, groaning, his eyes blurry from the pain. Then he noticed what fell on top of the car. A woman wearing red. This is it. I never thought I'll go out this way. The Adumbri examined herself. Castan hit her right arm and left thigh. Too bad he wasn't able to hit her head. The gunshot wounds were already healing. It walked over to him. He closed his eyes, ready to accept his fate. He couldn't stand up. And he wasn't going to pathetically crawl if he was going to get killed anyway. No. I should open my eyes. He did, staring straight into the demonic eyes of the Adumbri. It stepped on his broken leg, breaking his cast into pieces. Arg! He screamed. Was it going to play with him before killing him? Next, the Adumbri grasped his right hand, pulling him up. She squeezed until he heard the crunch of his bones. Arg! Just kill me already. The Adumbri released him. He crumpled on the pavement, barely conscious. Castan forced himself to look up, to face death. But the Adumbri wasn't there anymore. She just left. I'm behind you. Where? I'm right here in front of Seko's cafe. I don't see you. I put my phone down and called with a loud voice, "Here, Dean." I waved my hand to get her attention. She did a double take when she finally spotted me. She hurried over, almost jogging. How she managed to do that wearing her favorite pencil skirt and insanely high heels without looking ridiculous, I didn't know. I would have fallen on my butt if I tried the same. "Whoa, I almost didn't recognize you," she said when she reached my table. "Why? It's just the same old me." I removed a couple of paper bags on the chair beside me so she could sit there. I placed them on the floor, one between us and the other below the table. "You tied your hair." "I rarely do this," I said, fluffing up my messy bun held together by a pencil. "I should charge a viewing fee." "I wasn't aware you knew how to do that. First time I've seen you in a different hairstyle than just letting your wavy hair be free in the wild. Does it look good?" I faced sideways so she could get a better view of my handiwork. "Extremely cute. You look like a different person with your hair up." Dean squinted her eyes, taking a closer look at my face. I guess I'll take that as a compliment." "It is. You shouldn't hide your cheeks behind the curtain of your hair. They're really pinchable. You should do this style more often. Too much of a hassle. With your teeth and high cheeks, you look like an actual rabbit." "Hey, don't actually pinch me," I said, pushing her hands away from my face. "That feels weird. You know I don't like people touching me." Dean looked down, puzzled. "And are those the same clothes you wore when you left for school?" "No, Mom," I said with a grin. "Cut it out." She frowned. "Stop calling me Mom. I'm just a few months older than you." I was just feeling so stressed I decided to buy some clothes to cheer myself up. I usually shop online, but I decided to try out, actually shopping at a physical store to understand what's the big deal. Were you finally enlightened in the ways of shopping at the mall? Not really. I still prefer online. No crowds, no lines, and I can lay on my bed while browsing selections. Although, I'm happy I got to try the clothes before buying them. That, and getting the clothes I bought immediately. I thought you were Miss Adult that understood delayed gratification. I tried to mix the whipped cream on the top of my frappé by stirring it back and forth with my straw, but it stubbornly refused my efforts. I just scooped it up using the straw and licked it. I then stuck out my tongue at Dean's judgmental face. She rolled her eyes at me. "Are these the clothes you bought?" she asked, peeking in the paper bag near her. "I like the warm pastel colors." I intentionally placed that paper bag there so Dean could see I was telling the truth partially. Beneath my new clothes were the clothes I wore earlier. I made a mental note to find a way to get rid of those. And underneath them were plain shirts and pants, those cheap, brandless stuff at the department store that people used for t-shirt printing, inconspicuous clothes compared to my normal wardrobe. I was sure Dean wasn't going to rummage beyond my old clothes. Inside the other paper bag, the one I shoved under the table, were 2 pairs of cheap sneakers, gotta be careful of my footprints, a generic reversible hoodie, and a couple of anti-dust cloth face masks. All of these in case I needed to sneak around in the future. I got the idea to get these after I escaped the police chasing me. It was fortunate there were many other people buying face masks because of the contaminated fallout scare, so I didn't look out of place buying them too. What's this? I wondered if I left any suspicious evidence in the paper bag. Dean held up a crumpled paper. This. She smoothed it out on the table. It was the flyer from the guy inviting me to worship the recently awakened High Overseer. Dean made a face after reading it. Oh God, these groups are emerging out of their holes again, huh? You're not going to join them, are you? No, of course not. I don't even know what that's about. I'm all for freedom of religion, even though I don't agree with what most people believe in. Bill of Rights, and such. As law students, we should know that. But this is a different thing. The Corbrings themselves don't endorse all of these religious sects worshipping them in one way or another. In fact, they discourage them. You know what they do? Do what? What are you talking about? If someone becomes a Corbring initiate, they disappear, maybe a staged death or the like, so people wouldn't know about them and start a religion for them. The main purpose for all the secrecy is so that no one would harm their families. Preventing people from starting these stupid religions, even looting the old homes of Corbrings for something to worship, is a close second. Ah, you mean that? I heard they also do it for the normal people that work at the hive, I said. Like what happened to my dad. Was he still alive inside the hive doing science stuff? What would he think if he knew his daughter became their enemy? But those are just rumors. Rumors or not, the Corbring hive doesn't officially support these religions. Don't worry. I was just curious, so I accepted the flyer but then forgot about it. It's just so annoying, Dean said with exasperation. I have an aunt who's into these religions. Or can we consider them cults? She's going to bother us all again and invite us to worship High Overseer Isolde. She believes High Overseers are demigods. They practically are, I suppose. But it doesn't mean we should worship them. So this High Overseer. I took the flyer from Dean. This Isolde. I haven't heard of her before. She can't be a new one because there's no new High Overseer from the time they all went asleep like a decade ago. She's one of the first Corbrings. Fought at the start of the Adumbri invasion. Also went to sleep just a couple of years after the invasion was under control. I'm not sure why they woke her up now. I whistled in amazement. She must be pretty powerful. When did she wake up? Just this morning. Some of the Adumbri from Madagascar are already going to mainland Africa, either flying or walking on the ocean floor, breaking through the blockade. What's worse is that they still haven't found the purple bloom, so it's non-stop Adumbri production. I see. I haven't watched the news since last Sunday. Since it's all about the explosion. I got tired of it. I also haven't checked the news, but this is all over social media. Oh, right, you don't like social media. That was rule number 16. I shouldn't make a face online because I couldn't tailor that to a specific person. A face was the truth for each person I made them for. That simply wouldn't work over the internet. Who was I making it for? Also, there'd be a permanent record of any face I left on the internet which might clash with any future face I would make. Thus, incorporated into each face was a built-in feature that my persona didn't like using social media. There was more to it, but those were the two main parts of rule number 16. At least get the messenger app of Snippet so we can communicate faster, Dean insisted. Here we go again, I said. I sipped my drink while rolling my eyes. Indeed, she went on about the benefits of using Snippet instead of just texting. The message is instantaneous. You can send pics, send videos, you can call, or a video call if needed. Are you paid to advertise them or something? There's also location sharing so we can easily find you in case of emergency. But I need to download the Snipper app to get the messenger. I don't want that. You don't have to use it. Just don't post anything if you don't want to. But it never hurts to check what's going on. For example, I knew that. She looked around to see if someone was near enough to eavesdrop. She leaned closer to me and whispered that a mutant from the arena is still alive because people were sharing videos of it on Snippet. I gasped. I thought you said they all died. Dean shushed me. Quiet down. I just assumed it died. Are you done here? You can take your drink to my car so we can safely talk. A compact but sleek SUV, the light blue Genvoy was Dean's newest car. This wasn't purchased with the insurance proceeds from the car she lost in the Sanders fire. She mentioned she was still processing it. A day after her car was torched, she just decided to buy a new one. If I had her resources, it would be super duper easy to hide I was no longer human. I could just live the rest of my life on a remote island in the Caribbean. Where's the vid? Wait, Dean said, scrolling through her phone. Here, look. I muted it because it's just people screaming. She showed me footage recorded by someone with a very unsteady hand. The guy was eating inside a restaurant by the window. It appeared he hid below the window and just raised his camera overhead so the video wasn't centered correctly, but we could make out what was happening. Snake Mutant Buddy crawled out of a manhole. Or it was trying to. It made the hole bigger by digging and smashing through the pavement with its many hands. People were running away. A couple of police officers shot at the mutant while it was stuck. It freed itself and caught someone, then the video ended. There are many videos like this posted on Snippet, Dean said. Social media is usually faster than the news. Another reason to download Snippet. Here's another video. This time, it was when the mutant was outside Serenade Bazaar. When it flipped the police car, the guy recording decided to bolt. Is it still roaming around? No. The news said it was already killed inside Serenade Bazaar. How? I asked innocently. There's still no official statement about the entire thing. Isn't this good for us? The bid is here. They may be the ones to finally put an end to the 2MS criminal operations. Dean's brows furrowed. I'm not so sure. I don't think the bid will be able to catch the 2MS. They've been operating for a long time, and they have clients and connections in high places. They're not going to stop now. Also, remember our ultimate enemy is the Adumbri hiding in the bid itself. The worrying matter is that this will surely call the attention of the Corbrains. You're right. This is probably the biggest Adumbri-related incident in our country for the past year and a half. I can't recall when that touristy mountain village in Colorado disappeared because of an Adumbri. As of now, the hive is focused on the Madagascar infection. But they may still send people over to check what's up, I said, finishing her thought. They may be already here, I added in my mind, remembering the mysterious spear that burst out of the snake mutant. Exactly. This is the one thing we wanted to avoid. She sighed deeply, her eyes tightly shut. If only we could contact the others so we know what to do. It's best we don't. We already agreed we keep a low profile. We really shouldn't draw suspicion to ourselves with the bid in town. Right. I was thinking, and I hope you don't get angry with this, I said hesitantly. Dean shot me a questioning glance. I was thinking, I continued, this time with more confidence, it might be best I go back to my condo. What? she almost screamed. Don't go ballistic on me now, I said. We're sticking together because it's dangerous to be alone. Now you want to go back to living on your own. What if you're attacked? What if you're kidnapped again? What if? Dean. I frowned at her. Let me explain first. She puffed herself up, ready to argue some more, but I held firm and stared her down. After a few seconds of an intense staring match, she deflated. Sorry, I was just. I know you want to keep me safe, I said gently. And I'm grateful for that. Just hear me out here. Isn't it highly suspicious I'm living together with you? Your sister doesn't care one bit, but what about others? Huh? You're worried about what people would think. This is 2020, no one cares about. Why would anyone investigate us? We're witnesses to Kelsey's apparent suicide. It may seem like an isolated case, but there's a chance it'll crop up in Bid's investigations. This whole thing is huge, they'll turn over every rock to find anything. Remember that Myra said Kelsey has a terminal disease that was suddenly cured or something? There'll be records of it somewhere. Who knows if that will show up in their investigations? And then they'll find out the possible Adumbrey disappeared without a trace, and the two witnesses were suddenly living together like they're hiding something. That's unlikely. How about Bianca? There's not going to be much in the way of records of who was in the club that night because everything was destroyed, but it's public knowledge Bianca was there. She even had a shooting for her show just before the raid happened. She's a person of interest to the Bid. They'll trace everything, where she's been, the people she came in contact with. And that includes us. I'm sure she can take care of herself. One test and they'll find out she's just a human. Wouldn't it be suspicious that the two people present when a possible Adumbrey disappeared also met with Bianca who was there at the club on the night of the raid? I don't know, Errand. That seems to be a stretch. Dean was right. It was a stretch. Maybe someone with extremely big brains in the Bid could dig this up and figure out all the clues, but they already had a lot of work hunting the two MS that they wouldn't have any manpower to spare chasing obscure leads. The safest choice for me was to stay with Dean. But I wanted to go back to living alone. If I was on my own, I could try hunting in the tunnels below the city, find mutants or Adumbrey still in hiding. And eat them. I should watch myself. But it was just so much fun transforming and fighting with a powerful body. Which was why I should go back to my condo so I could practice fighting and controlling my powers. I could also research the various powers of Adumbrey and Corbring. I only knew about the legal side of things because never in a million years did I expect I would end up fighting Adumbrey in a physical sense, and maybe even Corbrings. And if I really wanted to destroy things and feel the rush of power, I could go to one of the abandoned buildings surrounding our hideout. No one cared about those. I already bought clothes for sneaky jaunts. If only Dean would agree that I should go back to living on my own. Time to pull out the big guns. I'm just worried, I said, trailing my words. I was just thinking of all the possible ways to lessen the chance of us getting investigated. I understand. You don't have any supply of the blue vial, right? That was what I'm worried about. You said it yourself. In Bianca's case, one test, and they'll find out she's human. That's a pass on execution without trial. She could then just weave a fake story she didn't know anything about the illegal activities at the club, maybe pay off some people, have an army of lawyers to protect her. She's like that even before you came, don't worry about it. She's a ghost haunting the place. Sometimes there, sometimes not. When we entered my unit, I inhaled deeply, taking in the stale air of a room that hadn't been opened for a couple of weeks. I loved it. Finally, some peace and rest. It wasn't that I hated staying at Dean's place. It was just that I had to keep up my face for an ungodly amount of time. Thank you for everything, Dean, I said. Here, I'll even initiate the hug as a sign of my gratitude. I spread my arms and wrapped them around the middle of her body, pulling her to me, laying my head on her chest. My hand felt her back until I found her spine. It would be so easy to rip her spine out. Erase those thoughts, or the guardian angel might say something to her. Wouldn't you burn like a vampire under the sun if you hugged me first, she said, hugging me back tightly. After several seconds, I said, I think that's enough hugging for now. That'll last us for a while. Don't forget to always check your messages, Dean said. She continued with her reminders and stuff for several minutes until I told her she was acting like a mother again. Whatever. I guess this is goodbye, errand. Why the sad face coupled with a forlorn farewell? I said. We'll see each other again tomorrow. I don't know. I'm already starting to miss you. Once Dean left, I turned on the TV to catch the evening news and sat on the couch to order pizza. It had been so frickin' long since I last ate pizza. I didn't want to eat one with Dean because she might judge the way I ate it. It was fine with a toast to eat the crust first, but I'd get odd stares if I ate the pizza crust first. Oh, a text from Mom, I said as I opened my phone. I literally forgot about my own mother because of the excitement of the past few days. I should have texted her I was safe the moment the signal block was lifted like the dutiful and responsible daughter I should be. Why did she only contact me now? The shit the city was going through should be carried by international news too. As if answering my question, Mom explained she was busy with some convention in Switzerland and didn't know what was going on in the US until today. Understandable, most of the international news would be focused on the Madagascar crisis. She also said she was going to visit me next month. Don't worry, Mom. Still alive and kicking, I texted her. I'm safe here. Just tell me when you're not busy so I can call you. Now what flavor to order? I listened to the news with one ear while browsing the menu of my favorite pizza place. It was just a couple of blocks away from here and I could have ordered earlier on the way, but I didn't want Dean to judge me if I got a whole 12-inch pizza all for myself. I decided to get a 4-in-1 to save time on thinking what flavor to choose. I looked up from my phone when the news about the snake mutant at Serenade Bazaar came up. The reporter interviewed a city official outside Serenade Bazaar. Heavily armed police officers, as well as a few in Comexos, established a perimeter while people in hazmat suits went in and out of the building. The reporter and the official referred to the mutant as an SBM Adumbri even though it wasn't. Outwardly, there was no actual difference between my snake mutant buddy and a low-level Adumbri, the ones categorized as spontaneous breach manifestations. SBMs, they were the most common Adumbri manifestation, an infected person that spontaneously transformed at an early stage before the Adumbri could make any progress transferring itself down to our dimension. Just your average mindless monster. Most people thought these were weak-willed individuals who couldn't handle the onset of the mental invasion and broke down, resulting in a premature mutation. As a result, there was a certain view about these individuals that also affected their families. I recalled this fact because my father lectured me on this when I made a supposedly insensitive offhand comment about something I saw on TV. I was a kid back then, who could blame me? I was an adult now so I knew when to shut up about my thoughts. The city official explained this was a level 2 SBM. SBMs were classified in 5 levels if I recalled correctly, depending on their strength, destructive capabilities, and how difficult they were to kill. The news switched to an expert in the studio to explain more about SBMs. He said, neither the Adumbri nor the individual is in control. Effectively, the Adumbri has abandoned the individual. The negative well left by the collapse of the Alois field of the individual is not sufficient to house the Adumbri. Science mumbo-jumbo, but I got the gist of it. Didn't Rofirio say the mutants also didn't have Adumbri inside them? I muttered as I chose pepperoni, for cheese, burger, and barbecue chicken as the flavors for my pizza. I was going to pig out tonight. Were mutants like a level below the SBMs? I wondered out loud. In a way, the mutants were knockoff brand Adumbri. The 2MS wouldn't want to make actual Adumbry for harvesting purposes, that was too dangerous. SBMs are often said to be akin to wild animals, the expert on TV continued, but that is not an accurate representation. Devoid of the consciousness of the individual and lacking control from the Adumbry, the SBM will be fueled by the remnants of the negative well of the individual. Thus, while some researchers are of the opinion it retains some memories of its former self, its primary objective will be to indiscriminately kill and destroy, as we've seen tragically happen today. I checked other channels. They were all covering the incident, they only talked about one Adumbry. What the hell? Why was there nothing about me? Come on, show something about me. Another channel said that the bid was tracking the people who were inside Serenade Bazaar at that time. Good thing I transformed before entering. Although, they were expectedly having a hard time identifying the people just based on the security cam footage alone. If you have video recordings or pictures of the incident, an advisory flashed, don't hesitate to contact the bid hotline on your screens. I snorted. No one was dumb enough to do that. If you contacted the bid to volunteer footage, that would be admitting you were there. And then you'd also be tested and placed on a watch list just in case you might be infected with something. That meant months of follow-up tests. Such a hassle. Well, there were people dumb enough to do that. For example, the people who posted the videos they recorded online. My phone vibrated. Was it Mom? Or perhaps it was Dean being paranoid again. I snorted as I saw the name. Yep, it was just nagging Dean. She messaged me using that stupid snippet app she forced me to download. I told her I was fine and that I was going to sleep because I was tired so she wouldn't bother me for the rest of the night. A couple of minutes passed and my phone buzzed again. If this was still Dean, I wasn't going to answer her. I groaned as I picked up my phone. But if I didn't answer her, she might come barging in my room, thinking I was attacked or kidnapped. It was her again, ugh. Huh. I said, reading Dean's message. What is this? She sent, watch this, followed by a link. It led to a snippet page of a group called SVS, the Silent Vigil Society, whatever the hell that was supposed to be. The latest post on the page was published only 5 minutes ago, yet it already had hundreds of comments and reactions. Download and share before the bid deletes this video, was its caption. More footage of the snake mutant. While I missed my snake mutant buddy, I'd seen enough of these videos already. I was about to dismiss it when the next line caught my eye. A good Adumbry. An Adumbry saved me. Click to see a hero Adumbry. I immediately clicked play. My mouth slowly formed a grin as I realized what the video was about. Sure enough, the snake mutant was there. But that wasn't the important part. The true star of the show walked into view, a gorgeous woman wearing mini cargo shorts, boots, and a red hoodie over a bare midriff top. I laughed out loud, perhaps my most genuine laugh for a long time. A hero? I didn't even save anyone, was the first thought that came to mind. Second thought, someone was there who was able to record this. Lastly, maybe I should text Mom, Mom, I'm on TV. Or to be more accurate, what was that term kids nowadays used? Oh yeah. Mom, I'm going viral.